Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back here with part 3 of our Survivor 45 cast preview. We've been having so much fun meeting our new Survivor friends, and we're back with one more group of 6 here with the man who got to talk to all these folks in the preseason. Give it up for Mike Bloom.
Rob, here we are, end of the road. I'm feeling quite blue, but on the other end, I can't help but be happy because at this point, we are less than 2 weeks away from new Survivor being brought back into our lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's really sneaking up on us. And so we have been going here for the last couple of days recording these season previews. And so today we're going to talk about the final grouping. Apparently, a blue tribe is here in the season: red, blue, and yellow. That's what we got.
Yeah, and listen, not to show my hand too much, but to quote someone else who once stood on a blue map, perhaps in retrospect in December, we'll look back and say the winner could be from this tribe. I think from the amount that I've at least winnowed down in my own mind of people who could possibly win this season, a good amount end up coming from this group. So no matter how they might be doing in the pre-merge, I think it's yet another solid, fun group of characters to talk through today.
Okay. If you missed our previous previews for Tribe 1 or Tribe 2, those are up on robhasawebsite.com and on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast feed so you don't miss any of it. robhasawebsite.com/subscribe. Mike, anything else you want to set up about this group before we meet our first contestant today?
Well, we do need another safe word. We have been going the bird direction. We've done swallow. We've done woodpecker. Rob, you have anything in mind for number 3 here?
I suspect that you might.
So we could go with cuckoo. Could be a fun one, which I think makes sense given some of the kooky characters on this season.
Okay. All right. Cuckoo it is. And so, Mike, why don't you tell us about the first person that we're going to meet today? And that's going to be a person named Brando.
Yes, Brandon Meyer, but you can call him Brando. He's on the waterfront. This time the water is the Pacific Ocean. And we'll see if he gets to be a godfather in this game, though I believe the truck driver has already been talked about. Brando is 23 years old, originally from Oak Park, California, currently lives in Seattle, and he is a software developer.
Okay. All right. So let's bring in conversation here with Brando. Here we
Hello,
go.
hello.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic.
It's the Brian Scally
having a lot
intro.
of fun out here
Brando
so far.
Scally. That's awesome. Well, I'm Mike Bloom. Nice to meet you, representing a parade in RHAP. Who may I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
My name is Brando. I'm originally from Oak Park, California, and I'm 22 also, if you can't tell. You know, a lot of people think that I'm like a teenager. My optometrist thought I was 12 the
Cuckoo.
last.
I thought he was going to say a lot of people think that I'm like 47.
I mean, if that is the case, I would perhaps cast a lot of judgment upon his own perception of himself, considering, like, look at
Well,
this.
I just would have been a funny joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at this little bit. It's the opposite of Bowie Jane, right? Of like, a lot of people think I can pass for 45.
Last time I went, so you know, and never know what I'm gonna get.
Rewind this
When's
back a little
the
bit,
last
Rob,
time you
because
went to the
yeah. So Brando had an interesting visit to the optometrist where I sort of judge this optometrist as well, Brando's choice in doctors.
Okay, here, let's
To
see it
meet
again.
you, representing a parade in RHAP. Who may I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
My name is Brando. I'm originally from Oak Park, California,
Okay.
and I'm 22 also, if you can't tell. You know, a lot of people think that I'm like a teenager. My optometrist thought I was 12 the last time I went. So
12.
and never know what I'm gonna get.
When's the last time you went to the optometrist?
You know, you would think that it was like years ago. I would say maybe like 6 months. We're talking 2022. And I know I was just as shocked as you. It was like,
Who
12?
needs to
I
get
mean,
their eyes
I know I
checked?
don't got any like facial hair going on, but you got to give me some credit.
Maybe he needs his eyes checked.
Oh,
Ironically
my
enough.
God.
Well,
Exactly.
Brando, what brings you out to Survivor? What makes you want to feel like your brand, in a manner of speaking, is this game?
Right. You know, growing up for me, I always had a lot of struggles with my, you know, internal like confidence and just like the way that I felt about myself. And so for me, being out here is sort of proving to that younger version of me that, you know, we can make it out here and that I can, you know, push through this and be that person that walks home with $1 million. You know, I grew up, I'm half Japanese and half white. And so I had a big struggle with always feeling like I was too white for the Asian kids and I was too Asian for the white kids. And then,
Ah.
you know, I would turn on the TV and it'd be like Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, all of these shows didn't really have people that were like me. And so I think part of why I turned to, you know, Survivor was because we had people like, you know, Yao Man and Ty. And it was really cool to see people that were, you know, more like me. And there's still a degree of me that was like, you know, I'm not nearly as Asian as any of these people who are, you know, first generation. They immigrated to America. And so, you know, being here is, for me is like, you know, that I can represent my own group.
Yeah, so I mean, you invoke some of those names of survivors past. Give me your history with the show. When did you start getting into it?
Yeah. So my parents first showed me Survivor when Survivor Nicaragua was airing. And, you know, I don't know if it was like Fabio's luscious hair or the crush that I had on Brenda, but, you know, I was instantly hooked. And ever since then, you know, it's been like my thing with them. We always watch together, even when I was away at college or now that I'm, you know, I moved over 1,000 miles away from home. And every Wednesday night, you know, we boot up FaceTime, we watch the show together, we debate our draft picks in between the commercials. And so, you know, it's been a big family thing for me.
Cuckoo.
Yeah, so that being said, can you give me,
Yes.
I mean, allow me to be a bit obtuse here, but I find a lot of similarities in these first couple of answers between Brando and between Austin, who we met last time. You know, I think that Brando is someone that loves Survivor Nicaragua. I think that there's been a lot of contentiousness as to who is this mysterious Jay, who Austin was referring to in my interview. Jay could refer to Judd, aka Fabio. We know he certainly has those flowing locks. I know that Austin and Brando both talk about their own Asian identities, connecting with that through watching Survivor, and they both love to watch Survivor with their families as well. So in a situation where if they make the merge together, hopefully, or even like if they end up going to a summit, I actually feel like these two guys could get pretty close.
Mike, have you ever watched a show on FaceTime with another person?
Is that like a Be Real thing where you're watching it at the same time, or is somebody like streaming it for you?
I don't know, I feel like that Be Real is just a picture.
I guess so. I guess it might be a bit of like copyright infringement if it's just like I'm gonna sit in Across the Spider-Verse and just Be Real it for a bunch of my friends so they don't have to go.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I've ever done that before. I feel like maybe I guess I've done like watch parties and stuff like that, but never like with like holding my phone and like, hey, let's watch this at the same time. I feel like the syncing issues would be a nightmare.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we'd have to do like the clap test for it, and then
Mhm.
in that case, you'd have to definitely sync up with a variety of houses as well. And God helps us if there's some sort of like thunderstorm warning or some bit of national news that pushes several sectors back. But
Oh my God.
But Brando is a family guy, but it also should be noted here that he is one of the youngest members of the cast. He's 23 now. He was 22 when he played. This is a generally younger cast. We have Bruce and Julie as the only people representing the 40s, not the seasons, but the ages here. And so it's interesting that Brando, I think, invokes something like Nicaragua, considering how that season was
Old
rife.
versus young.
Yeah, and was rife with younger people who ended up dominating the season.
Okay, let's go back to Brando.
Thing for me.
Yeah, so that being said, can you give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner that you identify with the most?
Definitely. So non-winner, I already name dropped. That's got to be Yao Man for me. You know, there's just something about how he's, you know, super friendly and charming, but also, you know, strategic and innovative. Like if you look at, you know, he used the truck for strategy, or he created the first fake hidden immunity idol. You know, I think there's so many great qualities to him, and I'd really like to play like him. And then for winner, I think that I would be sort of like a mix between, like, you know, if Yule and Cochran ran away one summer and had a child, I think that child would be me.
Wow.
Because I love, you know, Yule's got like that calm, cool collectiveness to him, and he's really smart and always thinking. And then, you know, there's someone like Cochran who's a little bit more goofy, but still on the smarter side. And I think that, you know, the best of both worlds for both of them is what I'm looking to bring to the table.
Hang on, I'm just going to like Control F all fan fiction to see if the Cochran Yule summer fling fan fiction is a thing yet.
Oh, it's got to be out there somewhere.
Cuckoo, what is your favorite
Yes.
moment? Rom, in the background, could you just have ChatGPT just write up like a quick fanfic of
I don't think
Cochran
that
Yule?
ChatGPT will do something like that.
Why? Is it just like too perfect of an ideal that they don't want to do it? You had them
No.
write a telenovela when I was on back in.
I know,
Survivor
but I think
43.
it's gonna say. I don't think it writes erotica.
I mean, it could be PG, only OTP stuff. We don't need to get like incredibly.
I
in
mean, I
there.
guess if in the fan fiction they adopt the baby,
Mm.
I think that. But I think if they hook up, I think ChatGPT is gonna say no.
Can I just mention Brando really brought about maybe my own Survivor hot take that I would use to answer my own question is I feel like Yowman and Ty both have been like lost to the annals of Survivor history. I feel like they are both incredibly underappreciated players and characters in the Survivor tapestry. I feel like they are barely talked about nowadays.
That's interesting. I feel like I hear what you're saying more with Ty than with Yowman. I feel like that Yowman, the lore of Yowman is still like pretty well talked about. I do think that the focus of which like Survivor Fiji gets discussed, I feel like that it used to be more about Yowman and Earl. But I think that Ty is probably the one who has probably been lost to history a little bit more. He plays 2 seasons like in very short succession,
Yeah.
not back to back, but he plays in 32 and 34. So
34,
basically
yeah.
over the course of like is it over the course of like a year and a half and then basically not
Even
again.
more. Remember that they swapped 31 and 32. But it's interesting because like
for the viewers,
yeah, but
yeah.
this is a guy who has one of the like highest averaging finishes considering he made the final 3 and then nearly made the final 3 in his second season. He was
Mhm.
one of the stars of 32, and even though 34 the stars shone a bit less brightly,
Yeah.
he still was finding idols like an MF. So yeah, I just find it interesting that I think maybe with the new era and some of these like newer stars that come in, someone like Ty who burned hot and bright for, like you said, basically a year of broadcast time, I feel like doesn't really get talked about. Yowman, I see your argument. I do feel like the low finish in Micronesia also didn't
Mhm.
help. That people are like, oh yeah, Yowman had his one good season and the season,
Relatable.
the season that we don't talk about. I also love that Brando, one of the youngest kids on this cast, is like, yeah, you know who I really saw myself in? The old bald Asian men on the show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he just transcends age, yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely. He is
Yeah.
immortal, I think.
Yes. Okay. Back to Brando.
What is your favorite moment in the Survivor history? Does it involve any of those contestants that you just mentioned?
One of my favorite moments is definitely in Survivor 26 when Cochran's walking around the beach, beginning of the season, and he's got that horrible sunburn all over his body. I've always been a fan of the goofier moments, and I think a more recent one for me is when there was an immunity challenge in season 42. I think it was an immunity challenge, might have been a reward, where Marianne was in this wheel spinning, spinning,
Yes.
spinning. And when she got dizzy, she spun the other way to make herself undizzy. And that was like a moment where I stood up and pointed at the TV and I was like, that's me, because that's something that I've done ever since I was little. And I'll stand by it. That 100% works.
So that being said, I suppose besides, spinning in circles in reverse to prepare yourself for that particular challenge, what has your prep been like for this experience? Once you find out that you're coming out here to play, what has the work been for the months leading up to this?
Right. So, I don't have a 3D printer in my apartment. So, a lot of my work with, practicing puzzles was running down to CVS, printing them out, cutting out the pieces and making
CVS,
sure
not
that I could
CBS?
get as many as possible. I mean, the shotgun approach.
Mm.
And so I think that that'll be a big factor in the way that I succeed in this game, because as, 22-year-old scrawny Asian guy, I think it's pretty obvious that I'm going to be put on some of the puzzles.
Yeah, talk to me about that perception. I mean, obviously, besides those biases, when you hit that beach, how do you think people are going to look at you initially?
Right. So I think, there's going to be a lot of people who underestimate me because they think, oh, he's just some young guy. And people under the age of 25 don't really win Survivor. They don't do well. But as someone who loves numbers and loves statistics, one of the stats that I researched recently is that players under the age of 25, on average, outlast exactly 50% of their opponents, which means, when I'm coming out here, I've got just as good of a chance as anybody else to make it far in this game. And so I think that's one perception that people will have of me, and they won't realize what's coming at them.
Yeah, so I was going to say, are you going to try to swerve into that perception almost like, the Fabio that brought you into the show in the first place of like, yeah, I'm just a young kid, trust in me. And then, don't disregard me until day 26 when you give me $1 million.
Right. Oh, 100%. One of my favorite things is telling puns. I'm like a big pun guy.
Love
And
it.
so I think that's something that, will help disarm me a little bit because, as someone who wears glasses, who is Asian, there's going to be that perception that I'm always thinking and that I'm super smart and strategic, which, I mean, I am those things. But if I can show my goofier side, I think that that'll help make people a little less alerted.
Cuckoo. Okay, Mike, Is it possible? Could we get perhaps there's a woman on this season also loves puns, smart lady, J Maya? Could this be the new Matt and Franny?
J Maya, B Meyer, it's right there. They don't even have to change their names that much when they get married.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, a match made in wordplay here. So let's move though from the vocal into verbal to the mathematical, I should say, Rob. What did you make of this statistic that Brando brought in about people who are under 25 pretty much make it further than like 50% of the average Survivor contestant? Do you feel like that's something that makes sense to you when the numbers are laid out?
I have to be honest, no, it does not make sense to me. But if Brando is saying it, I think that does, certainly, if I'll buy it, I'm not calling him a liar or anything like that. 25, I feel like is a big number though. Like I do feel like that there are like what I would need to know also what percentage of Survivor casts are under 25. Like
Yeah.
what is the breakdown? Like I wouldn't mind seeing like under 25, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35, 40, like 40 plus. Like
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting as well is that there is this difference, I think, between like longevity and then actual chances of victory at the same time. Where you look at, yes, there is probably a good chunk of youngsters that were able to make it further into the season, especially given seasons like yours or seasons like Nicaragua that almost purposely cast a bunch of people in that age bracket on it. If you look at the people that actually won under 25, we have Jenna. We have the aforementioned Fabio. We have Marianne. Do we Adam? I don't even.
Todd?
I don't think Adam. Yeah, I'm trying to think who else. It's not a huge amount, and so I do agree with Brando's point, and I don't necessarily see a moment where he wouldn't be
you have
targeted.
Sophie.
Sophie is another good one as well, but that's still what 5-6 people out of 42 at the
Mhm.
end of the day. That's why we always talk about like that sweet spot for a Survivor winner is like that 30s period where you feel like you have enough life experiences to like gain a sense for those people skills, and you're also not perceived as this younger person. Now, again, what benefits Brando here is much like Jenna, much like Fabio, he is playing alongside people that are older than him, but not by much. So I don't think it's like a Sammy situation where he's going to get to the final three and everyone's going to be like, Brando, we're not going to give this recent college grad money. Why would we ever be doing that? I think there certainly is a respectability that won't be discounted because of his age. I will also say the puzzle thing intrigues me here, Rob. First, I know you made the joke, but like, imagine if Brando broke into CBS HQ to steal puzzles from Survivor to just recreate them. That would be the ultimate way to certainly make your mark on the show.
It certainly would be. I don't even know where you would go at CBS. Like,
I mean, you'd have to fly to Fiji and try to. It would be the biggest heist in the world. Do we need an Ocean's 11 crew?
See, ChatGPT could write that fan fiction.
As long as it like stays
hacking
PG-13.
into John Kierhofer's laptop.
Exactly. Though, again, people might be saying that Carson did that in a manner of speaking. I mean, Carson himself, when I published my written version of this interview, did say like, see, you don't need a 3D printer in order to practice Survivor puzzles. I would push against that a little bit. Like, I'm glad that Brando put in some work here with what he was given, going to CVS, printing out the 2D version of the puzzles, probably cutting them out and making his own jigsaw puzzle. At the same time,
you do that with just the receipt.
Yeah, exactly. It's long enough. At the same time, I do feel like the emphasis on using a 3D printer is 3D. That nearly all the time, these puzzles are going to be things you build vertically, things you build off the ground. And so I think you need that aspect of like having actual pieces to interact with rather than just doing a typical jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, but also there are humans who have been on Survivor who are able to put these puzzles together who have actually never practiced them before. It is possible.
That's preposterous, Rob.
Like you can do it. I'm just saying, like, it's possible.
Yeah, and I think Brando also brings up something that we talked about back with Drew, I think even a little bit with Brandon back on the first Tribe preview, this idea of he is aware for many reasons of the role he will probably be foisted into within these first couple challenges. He knows, he sees it from Zach Wurtenberger, a fellow youngster who played of like a similar build, I would say, that like if you bungle one of those first couple puzzles, your tribe is going to say, well, there's absolutely no reason to keep you around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do think that, Zach's departure was like a little bit more complicated than that. But yeah, you got to put up or shut up if you're in this spot.
All right, let's get back to Brando.
Okay.
What's one life experience that you feel like has most prepared you for this game?
I think the biggest one for me is when I was 16 years old. I was about 5'8", almost 200 pounds, and I was really unhappy with the way that I looked, but also just like, the way that I felt in day-to-day life. And, as a 16-year-old, that's not really something that I felt like I could go out there and talk to people about and work through. And so I decided one day that, I was tired of, just sitting around and not doing anything, and I needed to put myself out there. And that turning point for me was when Millennials vs. Gen X was airing, and David Wright was out there on the beaches of Fiji, the same beaches here. And, he was facing his fear of, death in the outdoors and just, being himself, putting himself out there. And that was like a big confidence booster for me. And so, that year I decided that I was going to run 3 miles every night. I hit the ground running, and within a year, I lost over 50 pounds. And so I think, that's a big point in my life. Yeah, that like, it boosted my confidence, my motivation. And I think that's something that's really going to drive me out here.
That is incredible. Congratulations on that progress and that motivation. Now, sort of, I guess, skewing more so to the game side of things, I know in this little blurb that you wrote beforehand that your friends would describe you as a lovable liar. I am so intrigued by this turn of phrase. How is this like almost scoundrel-esque aspect going to apply for you in the game of Survivor?
Right. So, one of the things that I love doing with my friends is just screwing with them in any way that I can imagine. When I was in high school, I used to bring a box of fresh pencils to class and try to stick them into the backpack of the person in front of me, see how many I could get before they would notice. Along those same lines, I love lying to my friends just for absolutely no reason. They'll be like, oh, hey, did you hear that, this celebrity just got, this celebrity just passed away, or this celebrity just won some crazy award. And, I always tell them right away that it was a lie, but I think that they always have fun, falling for my tricks for a little bit.
Cuckoo, get Brando on claim to fame, Mike.
I would say more so on Prank Panel. Put him next to Eric Andre and Precious.
Yes. Did you know that my grandmother won an AVN award?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a really fun claim to fame twist, is like if there is one faker amongst them, then it almost becomes like the mole combined with all this as well.
Brando, who is your claim to fame? Well, I'm guessing that it is John Cochran and Yul Kwan.
They both show up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Brando, it's your dad, Cochran. Just want to say I'm really proud of you. I gotta go back to eat some Kit Kats in my bed. So, love you, buddy. Bye.
So when it comes to seeking out people in an alliance in this game, like, are you looking for that similar joviality, someone that you could stick pencils in their pockets or stick votes in an urn for?
I think that'll definitely come naturally. But one of the things that I'm going to go out of my way for is somebody who, isn't that much like me and might pick up the pieces that I miss. As someone who's, very strategic, but also small and a little bit scrawnier, I think that a larger, beefier player, maybe more physical, might be someone that could help me, or someone who might have more social experience in their day-to-day lives might be someone that could also help me advance. So I'm going to be paying attention to the people that can pick up what I'm missing.
So speaking of paying attention, I would imagine that you are paying attention to your surroundings right here, right now, right? Looking at all the other people around you. Obviously, You can't speak, but I'm sure you're making first impressions just as they are of you. Describe to me, is there anybody out here right now who you are sort of just based on vibes feel like, okay, this is someone that if we draw the same buff I want to work with? Is there somebody that on the other side of things, like red flag, if I get the chance, do I want to write their name down ASAP? Is there anyone in particular you have that vibe with right now?
Definitely. Yeah, there's a handful of both. I think that one person who probably is getting name dropped a lot in here and that I'd really like to work with is the big bald man, Bruce. He's someone who seems really friendly, and he gives me a lot of the same vibes that my dad gives me. And so I think he's someone that if he's on my tribe, maybe he could be like that little piece from home. There's also somebody out here who's got like some poofy hair. He's got some facial hair, got like this cool walk that he does sometimes when he knows that people are watching him. And, he's always making eye contact with me, always smiling at me. And, the more that I was taking that in and feeling like I was his person, I realized, he's doing that to every single person out here. And, he's someone that's going to be high on my radar because, I mean, he could already be everybody's number one. There's also, I mean, even just like going back to the airport, there was this one girl that I noticed skipped every single escalator. And I don't know why, but there was just something that made me not trust her because of that.
Like, no, I don't trust the machines. I'm going to take the stairs. You're like,
anytime we got the chance.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's
Cuckoo.
like, listen,
Okay. This is interesting.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like that I think this has come up before, right? That
yes.
I
So
feel like
let's talk about the mystery of the anti-escalator woman, because
yes. Was that did Hannah also mention this in one of her interviews?
yes, so Hannah talked about in her Dalton Ross version of the first impressions that she had said that there are people at Ponderosa who are taking time in public settings to like channel their chi, to do yoga in front of everybody, to skip the escalator and take the stairs at the airport. Now, Rob, I do believe on RHAP, you came out with some escalator takes as well.
Yeah.
Would you target somebody in the Survivor preseason if you saw them skip the escalator in the airport?
I don't know if everybody is going on the escalator and this person is like, hey, I'm marching to the beat of my own drummer. I'm taking the stairs. I think that would be on my radar.
Yeah, so the mystery has been solved. Myself and my associates did some deep diving, connected the push pins on the whiteboard. The anti-escalator woman is none other than the person that Brando will be sharing a beach with in Kendra.
Yeah, that would have been my guess also.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that makes sense. That, again, talking about someone who has some rage against the machine in a manner of speaking, I think Kendra does fit that bill.
Okay.
Listen, judgments can be cast for the smallest
Right,
things.
right.
Like
and it's like, what kind of world are you in where you don't trust them,
Let me lay out a couple of scenarios for you here. So let's say you're on your tribe pre-merge. Boat pulls up to camp. Guy steps out.
Okay.
Among your tribe, you got to pick one person to go on a journey. Now, we know these things can come with good things, can come with bad things. How are you approaching this? Are you volunteering? Are you going to try to like will someone else to go on for you? What's your strategy for this?
I'm going to be honest, there's no chance that I'm volunteering for something like that in the first few days because, knowing that I'm not the most physical guy, if we go to a tribal council, my vote's going to be really important for me since, the new era, there seems to be a lot of focus on the stronger people making it through those early votes. So when it comes down to a vote, either, I'll let someone else take it or maybe we'll draw rocks and I'll just hope for the best.
Does that apply to like the general hunt for advantages? Because I mean, you're watching in this most recent season, right? This idea of like, hey, maybe even the idols that you pick up might not even be real idols. Does that also affect the way that you're approaching the hunt for other trinkets in the jungle?
Right. Oh yeah, it's terrifying, and it's definitely something they have to be thinking about because even though we didn't really see any beware advantages in the last season, or at least as far as we're aware out here, it's something that if I see that, I'm going to try to coerce somebody else to go pick that up because having the advantage isn't always the advantage. Sometimes having the knowledge of it is better. I mean, hence the knowledge is power.
What would you say is your hottest Survivor take? What do you think is your most controversial opinion on a player or a season or the show in general?
Oh, definitely. My hottest Survivor take is definitely a pretty hot one, and it's that Edge of Extinction is actually a really fun twist. As someone who loves seeing players get second chances and loves the dynamic of having to, work through, okay, how do we treat people when we vote them out? And, how do we treat them before we vote them out? I think that it's really fun to see players have a chance to, win their way back into the game. And maybe that spurs from me starting right around when, Redemption Island was airing.
Well, I was going to say,
Cuckoo. Jeff probably loved that answer.
Oh, yeah. And listen, as Dalton Ross said when he put out his own hot takes video, I don't know what it is about the name Brandon and loving Edge of Extinction, but we are now 2 for 2 on this season in very separate occasions. Now, listen, Brandon Donlin was very straightforward about how he loves the season, not the twist. Brando saying loves the twist, maybe not the season.
Interesting.
Or is it just you as a player trying to manifest this thing happening that like Jeff's listening in on the call and he's like, we should bring this back to let Brando last the full 26 days in the game some way.
Please have that boat waiting for me to take me to Edge of Extinction if I can.
Well, last thing I gotta ask is maybe a site that's more welcome than a boat to Edge of Extinction. If you could pick a celebrity or a fictional character to come out as a loved one for your loved one's visit,
Who are you picking and why?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question, and I think I'm gonna have to go with Ichiro Suzuki.
Oh,
Growing up, he was my favorite baseball player. I'm pretty sure he was the first Japanese-born player to be a position player in the MLB, and so something about him breaking that boundary, but also being super humble about it all the time is something that I really value in him, and I think he'd have a lot of good knowledge to share.
Are you a Mariners fan, or are you just a fan of Suzuki?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I was a big fan of him when I was growing up, but then recently I moved to Seattle where I work as a software developer for big tech company, and so I've been loving going to the Mariners games, especially last season where
Yeah.
they finally made it to the playoffs. Yeah, the last time before last season that they were in the playoffs, I was one, so it was nice to finally get to experience that during my lifetime.
okay. There you go. There's
There we
Brando.
go.
Okay.
Do we think what will last a longer time here? Brando on Survivor 45 or the Mariners in the MLB season or postseason?
Well, Survivor is only going to start in September 27th. So, I mean, I feel like that I'm going to say Brando. With all
Yeah.
due respect to our Mariners fans. I mean, they could win the World Series and he could just get voted out of the merge.
Yeah. Is Brando the Julio Rodriguez of this season? The young upstart with something to prove?
I guess so. Mike.
Yeah.
The sports is not my favorite subject.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, some ill timing from that perspective. Talk about day one medevacs. As we'll get into Bruce. Yeah, Brando is someone I really like talking with. I mean, his story is fantastic, and it is pretty wild. I don't know. Maybe it's just from our own perspectives, Rob, but like, I can't imagine these stories from Brando. And again, Brandon, the similarity between these two guys of I watched Survivor and like whether it's the stories that these people are telling or like the idea of getting on the show caused me to make this substantial lifestyle change and lose this like profuse amount of weight and gain confidence in myself. That's amazing. If you told David Wright that, I think he legitimately would not believe you, but it's amazing that he hopes to hopefully emulate some parts of that because obviously David made a big cut in the game, especially in his first season. I feel like Brando is in a good position. I do think his idea of like, I'm going to be the goofy one of the tribe, it might not pan out because as we're going to get into in the personalities of this maybe tribe, I think there's going to be a lot of competition there. But if indeed those perceptions come true and he's looked on as like the puzzle guy, as the kid, as someone who's more unassuming, I think the two sides of the young players, right, is you have the Sammy and you have the Swathi. If he's able to be more so the Sammy of like the, okay, I'm just sort of like the reliable person who doesn't really know what they're doing, just lean on me for a vote, and less so of the like, let me go out there and hyper strategize and, make my mark on this game. I think he'll do well for himself.
Yeah. See, I feel like that. I know Sammy and Swathi is good for the alliteration, but I almost feel like that there's like, it's like a scale from like, I think the all-time flame out in terms of like a young person coming into the game is probably like a Jacob Derwin.
How old was Jacob Derwin?
I don't know. See, he had a very youthful energy.
Oh yeah, he was, I believe, a preschool music teacher, so I think that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that it's really going to depend on the makeup of the rest of this tribe.
Jacob Derwin was 22, so yeah, you're valid about that.
Yeah, so, and I'm not sure that Sammy is ultimately like the pinnacle of like how well it can go. I think there's probably like on a scale of like, a person.
Jacob Derwin to Michael Yerker?
No, but I would say like somebody like who actually went on to win the game, like a Todd or something like that.
Yeah, or even Carson, right? Someone who was 21 years old and one fire making challenge away from winning. I want to highlight a couple more things from Brando's bio before we move on, because yeah, we can certainly put a pin in him like I did in my Kendra corkboard and
put a pencil in it.
Yeah, exactly. Not too many. So he said, who in your life is your biggest inspiration and why? My grandpa Tom, he's a 94-year-old beast that helps spur my love for baseball and also loves to garden. He grew up in Japanese internment camps and always reminds me to keep pushing my hardest. He also still has a full head of hair, which again is interesting compared to his love for bald men. And then also, what is the accomplishment you are most proud of? In 2021, I wrote, illustrated, and published my own children's book. I have always had a passion for writing, and this helped me put this passion to the test. Rob, maybe he really is 12 years old. Maybe his optometrist was right, and the reason why he was able to publish a children's book is that he published a book as a child.
Yeah. So maybe, do we have access to the children's book?
I guess we'll have to look it up. Brando Meyer book.
See if it's on Amazon.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. Let's see. Looks like there is one Child's Play, Sports and Kids Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not the doctrine on why the church stands or falls, justification in biblical, theological, historical,
No,
and
I
pastoral
don't think so.
perspective.
Okay. Well, let's bring in a man who was mentioned by Brando.
Yeah, the
a
big
man,
bald man.
yeah, the man who's returning to the game. Let's talk a little bit about Unk. It's
Yes.
Bruce Perreault.
Yes. So Bruce, of course, the big ticket item here. This was something that was out there in the universe starting from the day after, or even the hours following the premiere of season 44, in which Bruce had the shortest tenure of any person in Survivor history, lasting only 12 hours in the game after receiving a concussion in the opening minutes of the opening challenge. Jeff Probst, in his talk with Bruce, extended off that conversation the offer. Bruce, we'll have you back anytime. Bruce is officially the first returnee from the new era, the first person to return to Survivor since season 44. And also, speaking of first, he was the first person I spoke with for Survivor 45. So
yeah,
it was
last season.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a big thing welcoming him back in. His energy was just absolutely jumping off of the computer screen that was between us. It's very clear he is going to make every opportunity of this second opportunity in the game.
Okay, let's bring in your conversation here with Unk, Bruce.
Look at us. Who would have
What's
thought?
up?
How you doing, man?
Well,
I
like
know.
best, man.
I mean, listen, deja vu, I think would be putting it mildly. I'm sure you're experiencing it yourself. How's everything going right now for you?
Everything's going awesome. It's yes, a definite case of deja vu. I've walked these paths and I've walked over these little train tracks and looked up to make sure a coconut doesn't fall on me. Like I've done all of this already. It's like
That happened last
and
time?
sleeping at Tent City. I've done it all. Like it is ultimate deja vu.
Yeah, so I guess to start, obviously it's only been just about a year, or even less than that since everything went down in 44. How has your life sort of changed, or has there been no relative change for you? Is it just sort of like same Bruce, different season as you were approaching your second time out on Survivor here?
There has been a lot of change, which is a good thing, a sad thing, but there has been a lot of change. But the biggest part of it all, with all the change that happened, is that definitely not taking anything for granted. Not a single day will go by that I'll take for granted. I'm gonna have a damn good time, whether it be sitting in an office, getting some paperwork done, or hanging out on an island, with a bunch of other castaways just chilling.
Yeah, so I'm really intrigued as to the process that got you here for this specific season, because we were all there, right? And you found out alongside us that right after the premiere episode, where we see, your medevac, your tenure in the game being the shortest in Survivor history, that Jeff says, yeah, Bruce, open invite to come on whenever you want. And you talked to me a bit about, right, like hearing that back after the fact. Talk to me about what the timeline was from then until now, because like I'm looking at my watch, it was a relatively short period of time since then.
Yeah, the timeline was like quantum leap. It was quick. It was really quick.
That's NBC, Bruce.
Yeah.
The day I spoke to you, later on that day, I had my conversation with Jeff, with casting, to be able to say, okay, what are we going to do? Do you want now or do you want to wait? And, in back of my mind, like, wait a minute, there's some really good momentum going on right now in regards to, Survivor, and the love that I got from everyone, the well wishes. So I'm like, you know what? Why not? Why not now? So I said yes at that point before even checking in with the wife.
Oh, before the wife?
She literally, when I did tell my wife, she's like, "Oh my God, yes! Oh, go have some fun." I was like, "Yeah, let's go!" So yeah, I found out, the night of the episode, and then the decision was made the following day, just to start the process and going out.
So when it comes to that process, because from a prep perspective, you could go in a couple different directions, right? You could be, well, I went through all this stuff a year ago, I can just do the same exact thing. Or you're like, I do have 12 hours of Survivor under my belt. Let me prepare differently. Which path have you ultimately taken in terms of like your prep during this very truncated timeline?
Okay, so the 12 hours of prep that I had was really not 12 hours of showtime.
Yes, it was 12 hours of showtime. Someone that I know keeps telling me it was 10, but I'll talk to him later. But the 12 hours, that there was nothing of me playing Survivor. There was nothing. Like I hit my head and I just was not around. Like mentally was not there to be able to honestly feel like I played the game. And then as far as for what I needed to do with it being kind of old hat, that I knew that all I needed to do was speak to, the proper people, get the time that I needed, and then, make sure that certain things were where they needed to be by way of my family, by way of, financial, and then that's it. Boom, I'm out here. Like it was, I'm old hat now. It's like riding a bike. It was easy.
Yeah. So when it comes to that, I mean, like you said, you sort of don't even define your Survivor experience by Survivor in general, but like, is there something you learned out here your first time around that you really are like putting in your pocket and moving forward with, be it from like a game perspective, a production perspective, etc., that you're hoping will make you a little bit more, quick on the uptake when you start your second season here?
It's as far as the production side, the beginning parts, the only edge up that I have on these other contestants is everything's hurry up and wait. And when I was in the military, that was a slogan: hurry up and wait. So I'm cool with that. I have no problem at all. But as far as for being out there with the contestants and starting the game, there is something that I will have above them, which is just the ability to know firsthand on what has taken place on 44 and how the dynamics really work out. We see television. Television's awesome. Spliced, cut, dropped on the floor, like all that other good stuff, and it's made into a story. There's so much more that's there that these young people, and I say young people because I'm like an ancient man. I'm 47. Oh, I'm 46. I'll be 47 in August. Like I feel old as hell. But these people, they'll understand it. They'll see it, and they're gonna be like, okay, well, this is not what happened on TV. And I'm gonna be like, oh no, it's not. And oh no. Well, what do you want to do about that? That's how I'm gonna grab it.
It's such an interesting perspective because, I mean, to your point. Yeah, so there's a few things I want to talk about with Bruce here. First, this quote-unquote advantage that he walks in. And Rob, I'd be really intrigued to get your perspective on this because you played in 2 seasons where one was all new players and one was all returning players. And I would imagine, especially with all new players, there is this gap amount of time where people are just like trying to get used to the idea that they are being filmed. That obviously did not come across in Survivor All-Stars, where it's been, as Bruce said, old hat for everybody. Do you think that is that advantage that he might have over these other contestants?
I really don't, because I think that it's like not the kind of thing where people end up on the beach on day one and be like, oh my God, what is happening? People are filming me. The Survivor producers and camera people, like, they're super professional. They're not up in your face. They're like filming you from afar. It might be like a slightly weird that like the sound guy is like has a thing over your head at times, but I really don't think it's going to be like anybody's going to be thrown off their game, and that Bruce like won't be because he's been there for one day before.
Do you think the way he was just talking, he was more so speaking about like the advantage of handling things as the season was airing? Or
yeah, I think that maybe like Bruce, I think that his advantage here might be a little bit of that he has been through the process of going out there, being friends with the people and knowing how they put the show together, as opposed to the people who are the novices who've only seen the show and have no experience as to what it like the types of things that get in the show and don't get in the show.
Well, not to mention, he also has the advantage of being the only one in this cast who knows how Survivor 44 ends, unless they read the spoilers. He is the one that could directly ask Jam Jam, hey, by the way, what are some things you did in case I was going out again that you feel like I should do this time around? I think that's an interesting perspective to bring in. And we'll certainly get into it as well with like his own firsthand experience after leaving the game and getting to talk with players that have previously played as well. Something else I also wanted to bring up is like, we don't need to completely define Bruce by the 12 hours that he spent on Survivor 44. Let's go back to when we talked about him in the Survivor 44 preseason. This is a guy who knows hardship. He is someone who was in the foster care for an extraordinary amount of time, having to take up root and adjusting to himself in all these different settings. And as he mentioned, he is a military man as well. And we talked about this with Sabaya as well, really valuing this person that has that level of endurance and mental toughness to cop another show that we speak about here in the CBS umbrella. And that really comes into play in a show like Survivor, where you are stripped down to absolutely nothing. And so I do think that even just taking away from, okay, what could Bruce have gained in terms of an advantage of having direct access to his cast members, his background lends a lot of credence to doing well as well.
Okay. All right, let's go back to Bruce.
That's how I'm going to grab it.
It's such an interesting perspective because, yeah, I mean, to your point, again, your experience was very unique, but like you did get to experience people coming in through Ponderosa, and obviously like getting to talk with your cast and hear about their experiences. Like, you essentially got to second-handedly experience a Survivor season. And so I do think it's interesting how, yes, from like an actual time played perspective, you only have a small leg up on these 45 contestants, but at the same time, you do certainly have like a perspective of being able to, you know, talk to other people that played large roles in the rest of the season.
Exactly. You know, and you know, they always have the mayor of Ponderosa, you know, first person voted off. Nah, hell no. I was the king of Ponderosa. Okay. I was the king of Ponderosa. So when and it was so funny because this is how much like people don't understand the perspective of the people that are being voted off. They came to Ponderosa, and the way that it worked out was I would greet them, and then they'd go down the line to whoever else was next. And they would always ask me, every single person, how's your head?
Never had any complaints.
This isn't about me. It's about you. You just got voted out of the game. Like, I was an asshat. I hit my head, and I got myself taken out of the game. Like this is about you at this moment. And that just goes to show that as devastated as people are, they're still conscious of everything going on around them. So when they come to Ponderosa, you know, they were allowed to speak their truth of what they thought happened. And then when everything gets rewound and you see it on TV, well, now you get more of an honest idea of what happened, because the edit is close to what truly happened when it comes to being voted out of the game. So, you know, that's the perspective above and beyond that I have in this game.
Do you get a sense as to if people are like recognizing you and formulating thoughts about you as you're walking around doing all this pre-game stuff?
Do you have any idea? So the process is we go to LA, and we're in LA, and all of a sudden we come downstairs, we get ready to leave. So everybody's in a line. I was the second group to come downstairs. So there's already 4 people in line. So now here comes the other 4, and I'm a part of it. I'm in the elevator, and people are looking at me like this little side eye, like, what the is it? No, that's not. And then I'm walking down across the lobby, and then there are people that are waiting in line, and they're looking at me like, oh, is that Bruce? And they're like whispering. You can see it in their eyes, like it's gotta be. And then everybody that comes through, they're looking. There were some people that would walk by me, and they kind of did a little stutter step and turn and look, kind of arched back a little bit, like, oh my God, that's Bruce. So they recognize, because everybody that applies for this game, they know the game, they've watched it,
right.
And I was just on their television, 3.5, 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think that's going to affect it all the way they perceive you? Do you think there might be some sort of mentality of like, he had his chance, we got to make it our chance? I mean, we certainly have seen returning players play with new players in previous seasons. This is obviously a very unorthodox example because, again, to your point, maybe not even half a day is what you spent in the game. But do you expect any of that perception to come with these other players?
I do. And when it does, the only thing that I can do is hit it head on. Like,
no don't hit it head on.
Say, bro, not again, please.
I have to not shy away from it. Yes. I went through everything that you just went through at Ponderosa. Yes, I went through everything through the first challenge. Yes, I made it here to the beach. So yes, but guess what? When we wake up tomorrow morning, this is brand new to all of us. So we can just run with it if you want to. If you want to think that I have an edge up on you, perfectly fine. Keep running with that. Let everybody know, because I'm going to play a game in regards to, I'm going to have some fun with you. We're all going to have a good time. And I'm not going to shy away from what people's thoughts and or expectations are. But one thing I will say, if they come at me with the 44 vibe of dad, because I'm older, oh no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I'm coming at it like, all right, think about something. I want you to think about like a Thanksgiving Day dinner, right?
Please, yeah.
And you hang out at the Thanksgiving Day dinner and everybody's getting ready to eat, and then boom, boom, doorbell rings, door opens up. Hey, what's going on? Who just showed up? Your crazy drunk uncle. That's me. I'm coming out there like crazy drunk uncle, and I'm gonna have a damn good time. Don't call me dad. That's already been used. That's old school stuff. I'm just coming in and having a good time, and it's just there's no way to get around it.
Wow.
Okay.
So I've heard people say
Cuckoo. All right. Should Bruce be saying that he is actually the identical twin of Bruce from season 44? That was dad. I'm his brother.
yes.
This is Unc.
You confuse me for Bruce. I'm loose, baby, in more ways than one.
Yes. Second of all, I can't imagine anybody is going to be like, hey, Bruce had his shot. Temporary player.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people have been voted out for odder things. First off, I completely agree with you, and I really like Bruce's logic of, hey, I haven't spent a night in this cave. I haven't woken up in Fiji on day 2. We're all in the same boat. And I do think we'll get into this. I think he's going to be able to endear himself to a lot of people. He already has not only his foot in the door, his half freaking body through the door, crazy drunk uncle style, with how much people are already seeing him and wanting to work with him. I think his reputation, or the fact that a picture of him has appeared in the Survivor wiki, that his photo was available on the Brant Steele page, I do not think that's going to preclude him from getting voted for in the end. I think it would be, listen, again, I feel like people have extrapolated more asinine reasons to vote somebody out, but it feels like it'd be way too much of a logical leap, especially because it's much more, what have you done for me lately? And it feels like Bruce is going to bring a lot more elements that would appeal to those people.
Ironically, Mike, is your drunk uncle typically the most popular figure at a Thanksgiving celebration?
As long as he doesn't go into politics, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, did you hear this conspiracy? Like, all right, Uncle Bruce, we're not talking about that right now.
Well, actually, if you watch the latest promo that is dropped at the time we're talking about this, there may be some conspiracy theories that get brought about on another tribe. 90-minute episodes lead to a lot of material. What I do find interesting, though, is he elaborates on this a bit in his 1-minute video for CBS, that the reason why he said crazy drunk uncle is that you don't tend to complain about your dad to your dad. That a dad obviously brings about a lot of certainly keeping someone, in close with you because of the blood bond, but you're not exactly going to keep them not at arm's length. Some people, their dad is their best friend, but for a lot of others, it's something that, like, yes, I have my dad. I'm not going to tell them my deep, dark secrets. Instead, let me open up to crazy uncle here. It's the Miles Morales situation. You're connected enough to the family to know my ish, but not so well connected.
How did that go?
I mean, listen, Bruce, I think, is taking on a much...
Yeah,
I mean, talk about from hero to villain. He's taking on a much more prowler route this time around.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Bruce.
Wow. So I've heard people say I'm going to play like a cop. This time I'm a criminal. Bruce really don't want to say last time I was the dad. This time I'm the drunk uncle on the Survivor season.
Let's go.
Well, from that perspective, I mean, listen, this is far from your first time in this preseason Ponderosa. I'm curious, though, from your own perspective, are there people just from first impressions that you're eyeballing of, like, if I'm with this person on a tribe, I feel like I'll get along with them. I feel like that's someone I want to work with?
Yes. I'm not discounting anyone because things change. You could have a tribe swap, and if there's someone that's here and you have a preconceived notion and you're like, ugh, I don't want to deal with that person. They're annoying. They're loud. They snore. They eat weird. Like, if you find a reason to not like someone, then you have to work with them. Man, if you don't have the ability to make that change from I don't like working with you to working with you, that's going to be tough for anybody, especially if you're hungry, you're missing family, you have bumps and bruises or whatever have you. You're not going to want to make that change. That's why I'm looking at everybody like a potential person to work with. Are there people that are going to get themselves, which I think in my mind, voted out quickly because of their, over eagerness, or, you can kind of see the people that are smiling too much or want to like kind of lean in towards you and kind of make that eye contact.
Okay, no, spill the tea here. Give me, obviously you don't know names, but like, give me some descriptors. Is there like a particular person that fits this in your mind?
Man, listen, just between me, you, and everybody listening.
Absolutely.
There's one gentleman, really nice guy. He looks like a really nice guy. We'd hang out and have a beer at some point in time, but you got to take the cheese down, man. Like, you got to, like, I can see that all this smiling, you don't recognize the time that I saw you when you were aggravated about something and you literally, your face changed like you would not believe. And I'm like, oh, that's easy. Now I can look at this person and be like, yo, did you know that blah, blah, blah said X, Y, and Z? Go ahead, go blow your game up, bro. And he's going to go take off and do his thing. Like, hey, it is like, I'm going to utilize what I'm seeing here. And then there's the meek,
Cuckoo, who's that?
I mean, I gotta keep assuming this is Caleb. Maybe this is just me trying to put him in a box when Caleb is far from boxable. But I feel like whenever someone's bringing up like this guy keeps smiling and cheesing around Ponderosa, I'm inclined to say that it's Caleb.
Okay.
People that look like they're meek and they're shy, and if you're just smart enough to just listen, and when they're having a conversation with one of the handlers, oh, they're crazy. They're just nuts. They just want to talk. Like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. Like, and my job is to listen. I'm just gonna listen. I'm gonna listen. I'm like, the beautiful thing about being in sales is that you listen. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Hey, 2 ears win, so you just listen. So I'll be listening to everything that's going on, but I'm willing to work with everybody. That's how I look at it.
Let me present a scenario to you, and you just missed out on this in your season. But let's say a boat comes to your camp in the pre-merge. Somebody says, pick one person to go on a journey. You know this. You have been part of a season that has had this. What is your strategy? Are you volunteering? Are you trying to like throw someone else under the bus? What are your thoughts behind this?
I'm more than willing to go. I don't care. Like, it's like, this is something that I'm never gonna be able to do again. And I know that I said that before. In my heart, I knew that I was never playing again. I thought I was done until I got the information that I was coming back. If they come back and they say, "Oh, we need someone to get on the boat right now," I'm just gonna go. I'll go. Why not? You want to live full experience. Oh, worrying about what people are saying back at camp. If you do your job correctly, there's probably 6 or 7, maybe 6 days that go by before they come and get you, or even 3 days that go by before they come and get you. If you're not having the proper conversations, if you're not getting the proper buy-in from the people that are around you, then be scared. Don't go. Oh no, it's a kiss of death. It was a kiss of death back in the old version of Survivor. The new version of Survivor, it's not. And then when you come back, why lie? Why lie? Listen, hey, I got X, Y, and Z. Hell yeah, you're gonna lie. I'm gonna tell them I'm gonna have an advantage. But this is what happened. Hey, we got all this, and I don't have a vote, or whatever have you. I'm gonna, you stretch the truth as much as possible. You don't break it. You stretch it, and then you have nothing else to worry about. I would never say no to an adventure in going out, going for a walk up a hill, walking across, to a rocky area, like, across the water. I don't care. I'm going to take care of whatever I possibly can and have as much fun as I can.
Give me your biggest superpower and your biggest piece of kryptonite in your life and how that might play into your game.
I'm going to go with the kryptonite first. The kryptonite is going to be the ability to not have food whenever I want it. Oh my God. I tried at home. I tried for I think I lasted 6.25 hours. And my dog looked like a 5-course meal.
Oh no.
Cuckoo. Bruce, do you sleep?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Unless he sleep eats. I also like the idea that Bruce lasted half the amount that he lasted in his first season of not being able to eat. But also, as we're about to get into, Bruce may or may not have wanted to eat his dog by the time he finished fasting for a quarter of a day.
Yeah. That's not great either, Bruce. There's other things that'd be easier to eat.
Yeah, God help any of the goats that wander into this camp.
Well, Bruno is about to be but no, so that would be my kryptonite. And my biggest superpower is just you'll see it. I'm gonna have the ability to ask the proper questions just to get an answer. There's a different hey, Mike, what time is it today? Tell me the time. Okay, what color is that? Tell me the color. Do you like that color? Yes or no? That's it. Those are close-end questions, man. I'm going to ask open-ended questions. I'm going to ask the ones that are going to make you think a little bit. And then I'm not going to take your first answer. So I'm going to ask you an open-ended question. I'm going to ask you another open-ended question, and I'm going to get the truth of the third question that I ask you. So
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, how tough is that to like walk that fine line of being able to ask those questions without feeling like you're Jeff Probst at Tribal Council, right? To not feel like, man, Bruce is really coming in like an interrogator. Do I really want to open up with this guy?
yeah, you have to be personable. You have to like people answer Jeff's questions because they love his face. And he smiles with big ass dimples on his face. Hey, when you say that, what do you mean? Like, oh, what's the reaction that you're making right now? Like, because you're looking at Jeff like, oh, Jeff, what do you want to know? I'll tell you whatever you need to know. I'm not Jeff, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have the ability. And then I have the ability to sit there and say, okay, they're getting a little frazzled. So I'm just going to step back and, give them a little shoulder nudge and be like, bah, like make them laugh and then move on.
Cuckoo. Last thing I want to ask you. Yeah, before we get into the last thing, we need to unpack this because Rob, I mean, if your face could say something, tell an entire children's book that Brando wrote here.
Yeah, I was just a little confused of okay, hey, what time is it? What color is that? And then after, is he like a polygraph of like, okay, I've established the baseline of how you answer questions. Now I'm going to ask you an open-ended question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to intersperse them or if he was more so providing examples of closed-ended questions as to what he wouldn't do, and more so asking questions that allow them to quite literally open up to him. And then what I found really interesting is him saying either like, I'm going to keep pressing you on it, or maybe I'll ask it again because I'm not going to accept that first answer. I mean, that's the sales in him, right? You don't take that first offer that you're giving. You're going to keep trying to nudge it. As I mentioned, that can be really tough until you don't want to come across again like the pretty face Jeff Probst at Tribal Council being like, why is this person I'm competing alongside giving me the third degree? Do they really trust me that much? But I think what Bruce is trying to set up here is that he feels like he has enough of this social base to him that he's going to come across again as the crazy drunk uncle. Then when the crazy drunk uncle does open up and it's like, where do you think we go when we die? That you'll have your guard let down, that you'll be able to actually like voluminously talk about all your thoughts on the afterlife and not give it a second thought.
Yeah. I just think that like maybe less than 1% of Survivor is like asking those types of like probing questions to the other people. So I'm not sure necessarily like if this is the most useful way to sort of glean that information.
Yeah, I mean, when the appropriate questions are asked, like, do you have an idol? Can I use the knowledge as power? Like, those are things that are closed-ended questions. That doesn't really apply to open-ended questions.
And really, you mentioned Jam Jam earlier, but like when Jam Jam at his final tribal council talked about how like he would notice the way that people would have the sparkle in their eye when they would talk about a thing that they were passionate, and then he would be able to detect when that sparkle was missing, when they were not talking about something that they had these convictions about. Like, I think that that's probably the better way to go about this than, okay, I'm going to ask you point blank questions. And then if you stammer when I ask you this point blank question, then I'm going to know.
Yeah, I think this answer is clinical and maybe overtly so. I do think it's at least supported by the fact that, as he mentioned, if he feels like he's gone too far, he's going to bring it back around to the comical side. He's going to nudge the shoulder. He's going to give a joke. We know that Brando's going to love that if he throws a pun in as well. So I think that Bruce will be able to salvage it if he feels like he has gone too far. We'll see if this open line of questioning is able to produce the results that he wants to, or if it's more so something that might irk some people as to why are you plumbing me for so much information when you're giving me not so much.
Yeah. Are you wearing a wire, Bruce? Why are you being like this? Okay. All right. Back to Bruce.
Step back and, give him a little shoulder nudge and be like, bah, like make him laugh and then move on.
Last thing I want to ask you, you said big fan. So again, I won't spoil this episode, but what is, in your opinion, your biggest Survivor hot take? What's like the most controversial Survivor opinion you have?
The younger generation will not get my humor. They will not get. It's and I will make fun of myself like you would, like, easy. That's not hard to do because I know who I am. I will crack jokes. I'll have fun, but I have to also understand that the younger generation will not appreciate to the fullest extent my humor. meaning that I'll say something and maybe the camera guy might chuckle because he's a little older. The producer might chuckle, a little older, and the youngins might be like, so I got to read the room, but I got to make sure that and keep in mind that the younger generation might not know my humor.
This was his hot
Yeah,
take.
I mean, I don't know how much the dog eating joke will work. It worked with me. I'm not sure if the younger generation might like that.
No, like, I was kidding. It was a joke. Like,
Oh my God. Well, no matter what, like jokes or serious statements or open-ended questions, I'm so happy you got this chance, man. Like you are busting with energy right now. I could just feel it through the screen at this moment. And I know that like second chances are hard to come by in life, in Survivor. And I know you were going to put all of the shape you're making, that heart, into everything that you give. And that makes me so excited. I'm ready to see Drunk Uncle Bruce personally.
but I want to say something really quick. That wasn't a heart. That was a square.
No, Bruce, I've done a 180. Mea culpa. I admit it. Okay, you've showed me, and I'm ready to see in season 45 me be proven wrong. 26 days with $1 million check at the end of it. That'll be a rectangle, not a square, with your name on it.
Love it, love it, love it.
Okay, Mike, is it a reference to something you said in the preseason last season?
Yeah, so let's talk about this because, as I said, this was the first interview that I did in Survivor 45. I felt a little rusty. I hadn't done, interfacing dialogue preseason interviews since season 39. And closing the interview with a moment where my soul, swear to God, left my body for a hot second, where I got so incredibly anxious, was a wild way to end things. Thank God Brandon Donlin was next and brought me back down with his warmth and generosity. So during this conversation, it wasn't seen, but as I was talking about, my eagerness to see Bruce play again, I thought he was making a heart with his hands. It turns out he was making a square because apparently during these very chatters, Rob, that you and I were having, but, 6 months ago, talking about the season 44 cast, I had said that I thought, especially compared to some of the biggest personalities on Tika, I thought that Bruce seemed like a pretty degular person compared to that. And he has left with this perception, with this assumption that
that's no shade. I mean, find the person
there.
that's not the square next to, Carolyn and Jam Jam.
Absolutely. Those things are freaking polyhedrons. They're unnameable, unidentifiable shapes that you can't even roll across a casino top compared to what Bruce is. So he thought I called him a square. He has not let me live that down. And
You're
it
in
wasn't
his
even
head.
it's not even the fact that he called me a square, and more so the idea that I had misunderstood that he had sent love to me, but instead it was, oh no, I'm not gonna forget what you did.
Shade.
I'm not gonna be surprised, Rob, if Bruce ends up winning this. In that moment in Fiji, when Jeff is about to go to pizza from Stu being brought in, and he's like, screw you, Mike Bloom.
Yeah, this is your Mike White moment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, all that being said, I think at the end of the day, at the end of 26 days even, there is a sizable chance that Bruce could be saying, F you, Mike Bloom, after he takes home this money. I think Bruce is set up to do really well. I mean, we've heard it in other interviews. We're going to hear it in a couple more here. I believe something like 6 or 7 people brought up Bruce's name in that first impressions question, mentioning that they wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
That is more than a third of the people that are playing this season.
Yeah, I think he is set up pretty well. I think he has a great blueprint in terms of Tika, 3 very different approaches to the game in Carolyn and Jam Jam and Carson that he watched, I'm sure, very closely. Hey, this was my tribe. So I think he's got the blueprint down. I mean, some of the stuff about
literally he's on the blue tribe.
Right. Some of the stuff about how he's going to, get these answers out of people. I don't really think that stuff is going to really be what makes the difference for him. But I just think that he is a person with a great story, easy to root for, very likable. And I think that Bruce is really set up well here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll come in hot and I'll say, I think he is at least making the mergatory. I think there is no way they're getting rid of this guy in the pre-merge unless he really flames out. And what's interesting is that in the Survivor 44 preseason, I know I had some worries about is he going to come out as too, for lack of a better term, headstrong of a leader here? Is it going to come in
or not headstrong enough?
Yeah, exactly. With this military background, with this dad mentality as someone who might be perceived as too bossy, and obviously that wasn't the case. But the fact that despite him not acting on those impulses, he was able to come in with almost the oppositional approach this time around gives me nothing but hope. I think despite the fact that he feels like his sense of humor may not vibe with some of the younger contestants, which I'm not sure about. Like, is he going to make references to Watergate? I'm not sure to what he was referring there in terms of the generation gap, but I think he has already endeared himself to so many people in this game. I think despite the fact that he feels that they're all in the same boat as of day 2, I think they're going to look to him on day 1, at least that first challenge being like, okay, what do we do? How is this supposed to go? I think he'll sort of be that leader early on. Maybe he will get away with volunteering to go on the journey and everyone will be like, okay, that's totally fine. And he'll be set up really well. And I do think, even if you might have misgivings about this whole open-ended questions approach, I think going back to one of his other answers about how you've got 2 ears, you've got 1 mouth, and him just being super observant, I think is really going to help him. Again, that's where that jam answer comes in. And so I think he's going to be able to institute that. He's going to, while everyone else is running around like chickens with their heads cut off, he's just going to sit there and watch the entire time. And I think that's going to pay off really well for him.
And I know Bruce is super observant. Bruce, I always liked you. I never thought you were a square, unlike Mike. And
Wow.
so us old heads need to stick together, Bruce.
Yeah, see, this is the status of said heads is up in the air, but old heads nonetheless. Yeah, this is why I'm podcasting with a 2-time Survivor player, is you know how to throw me under the bus before I do.
All right. But I really think he's set up very well. I sure there could be like a very small chance that he gets like Russell Swanned here by like some Malcolm.
I was thinking Russell Swan was the closest comparison for me.
I haven't
it's very
seen that
unlikely.
here. He's gonna come out. They're gonna he's gonna get an ovation. They're gonna say like, I'm pretty sure Jeff will call attention to it on the mat. Look who's back with us. They'll clap for him. I think they're gonna be very excited to see him.
Yeah, and I think that happiness is going to carry forward. And like you said, if he makes it to the end, good God, what a story. It's the exact opposite that has sort of been levied at people like Stephanie LaGrossa or Dan Giesling. Again, I do not think this will be a cast to say he had his chance. I think it's more so the story of he had his chance, it ended in tragic fashion, and look what he was able to do with this second chance.
Okay. All right. Let's bring in a third member of this tribe. Mike, what can you tell us about Jake?
Jake O'Kane, 26 years old, originally from Hanson, Massachusetts, currently living in Boston, Massachusetts, with his grandmother, hoping to earn some payola to move out of Nana's house and into his own place.
Okay. All right. Let's check out your conversation here with Jake.
All
Hello
right.
there. Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing good. This Rob has a podcast.
This is Rob Has a Podcast / Parade. I'm Mike Bloom. I'm the catch-all right now, your one-stop shop.
Dude, Mike, man, I've listened to you so much, man, over the years. This is crazy that I'm talking to you.
Well, nice to meet you, man. Give me everything about you. Give me your name, where you from, what do you do? Give me the deets.
Yeah, dude. So my name's Jake. I'm from Hanson, Massachusetts. I live in Boston with my grandmother in her house. I am a newly-bad lawyer. And I teach theater to kids. I am a bartender. That's kind of the quick rundown. I recently lost 80 pounds. That's also something that has been kind of something I've been talking about.
I mean, that was a quick rundown, but like a very comprehensive rundown. I got to stop in a couple points about that. So congratulations, obviously, on the recent accomplishment with passing the bar. So when it comes to like bartending, teaching, I'm assuming that was something that predates this new law career?
Yeah, well, no. So I took time. So I did theater all throughout middle school, high school, undergrad, and then I stopped doing it during law school because I needed to focus on my studies. And then it was actually funny because I got a call from my old theater director, and she's like, she has her own dance studio, and she was like, Jake, I'm trying to revive my theater program post-COVID. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not in school anymore. Let me like direct a show with these kids. And like, I have a co-director who's a great friend of mine. And we're doing The Lion King right now. So I had to leave the kids. It was super sad leaving them, telling them, oh, I got to do something with work. And one of the preschoolers wrote me a letter. And I was like, oh, man, like, I'll be back to see the show, though. I will get to see the show, but I'm missing a bulk of it. And I feel bad about it.
Cuckoo, he's like the real life Mufasa.
Exactly. The kids looked up and they saw Jake's face in the
Mhm.
clouds. I adore Jake's accent so much. I don't
Yeah,
know if this
it's
is like
great.
infantilizing, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's been a while since we've had like an authentic masshole accent on Survivor, Rob.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and think through the last few seasons to see if we had anybody. But yeah, we love a Survivor accent.
Absolutely. And I mean, just him talking about like a newly bod lawyer and
Hmm.
talking about how he tends bar. Like, I
Hmm.
absolutely
A
love
lot
it
of
so
bar.
much.
Yeah.
And what I think is also really interesting while we're talking about this theater teaching stuff is when he is asked in his bio, what previous player do you identify with the most? It's not mentioned in my conversation, so we'll talk about it here. He actually says in his bio, Wendell, because we both have a
Hmm.
logical side, both going to law school, but we are also creatives. I think that combo served him well in the game. I completely agree. It's the left brain, right brain thing, right? It's being able to interact with a lot of different humanities in a manner of speaking. That, yes, you do have the more clinical, literal, by the book stuff with having a law degree, and obviously the academics contained therein, but then also you have an ability to express yourself as well. And especially considering some of the people that Jake is on a tribe with, I think he might be one of the most like fluid social players in this group, considering it feels like he has so many different areas covered that I think he could pretty much vibe out with anybody here.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Jake.
So what brings you to the Pride Lands that is Fiji? Why are you here competing on Survivor?
Dude, I'm competing on Survivor because I want to test myself, man. Like, I've been watching this show since One World. One World I watched kind of sporadically. And then by Philippines, I was like every
Sporadically looked
episode. I
great.
remember watching the first episode of Survivor
Good job,
Philippines.
Brando.
And I'm in my living room. It's showing the Mat Sing Beach. Everyone's in their underwear. Denise pops on the screen. It says sex therapist on the Chiron. And my dad walks in and he's like, Jake, what the hell are you watching?
Oh, no.
Kind of took off from there.
My goodness. So,
Cuckoo, we just mentioned Russell Swan's first season.
yeah, and Jake's going to be on a blue tribe as well. So maybe he'll have a full circle moment of like, is somebody out there watching me in my underwear and their dad's going to walk in at an inopportune moment? That being said, whether or not Denise may be included in here, give me one Survivor winner and give me one Survivor non-winner that you identify with the most, strategically, personally, whatever.
Oh, man. I've been saying two names for winners that I identify with. I've been saying Chris Doherty because I feel like,
Ooh.
I feel like I can bullshit like him. That's a throwback name.
That's a
really
name
like
I haven't heard in a
Vanuatu.
long time. Hell yeah, Vanuatu stands, rise up, man. I'm with you.
Dude, I love it, man. Like, there's some, is it the tightest cast? No, but there's some great moments there. And you know what? Eliza, Amy, Twyla, Scout, Chris, Saj, like Rory, like this. I love Vanuatu.
Cuckoo, what does he mean the tightest cast? Like they all get along after, or there's like some holes in the casting?
Yeah, I think it's more so the latter, that it's like it stars and scrubs a bit, though I do feel like Survivor Vanuatu is both a very underrated season and perhaps an underrated cast as well. I think Jake ran through a bit of the hits here, but I was so delighted to hear him talk about Chris Doherty as he's about to, because I think this is also, we talk about characters that have been forgotten in Survivor history. I feel like Chris is one of them. When we talk about final tribal council performances, I think people like Marianne and Jam Jam have been obviously very recently remembered. But look at Chris Doherty, someone who got given a lot of stuff to his face of like, you lied to me, you betrayed me. And good God, was that man able to Andy Dufresne style wade through so many miles of crap to try to get them back on his side. And he was successful in doing so.
Okay, let's go back to Jake.
So I feel like something that's been lost in recent seasons. And I think Jeremy Collins is to blame for this. I love him. He's amazing. Jeremy, he's repping, Boston. So I'm big pro Jeremy, but everyone thinks they have to be super honest in Final Tribal. And I don't think that's true. I think you see that with Chris. I think you see that with Todd. They bullshit. I mean, you have to be a good bullshitter because people have to believe you, but you don't have to be 100% honest in Final Tribal. And I think people have kind of gotten away from that in recent seasons. So when I get the Final Tribal, I'm hoping to bring that back and hopefully blow some smoke up some asses.
Interesting. You got a similar non-winner bullshitter that you associate yourself with?
Yeah. Probably I like Dom Abate a lot. I like Dom a lot.
I can see that.
Man.
Yeah.
Dom is like he he brings a lot to the table. I mean, he's the person to get the closest to winning without actually winning. You know what I mean?
True.
Wendell rightfully wins that season because you know what? Wendell has one hell of a social game, and I don't think, that can be taken away from him whatsoever. But I like Dom. Like he reminds me of a lot of people that I know, and like I just every time like I just think of like that scene where he's talking to Kellie and he has the coffee in his hand. He's like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, no, do that, and then not doing it. Like I
pretty
forget
good.
what quote that was, but
Yeah.
I love that moment.
Do you have a favorite moment in the history of Survivor? Is it around Dom or Chris or any of these guys you just mentioned?
I'm gonna give a basic one, but Tony holding the idol and Jeff, like I don't think it happened today. Can you validate this for me? Can you validate this for me, Jeff? Like I love that. Like that's a great moment. Just like look at back, I look at all of them. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I love the theater of it. People need to play into the theater of tribal council. And something Jeff told us the other day is that you need to take his questions and throw them back. And that really wasn't something I was thinking about before the game. But I think I'm really equipped to do that just based on my training as an attorney. Like I may not have done a trial yet because I'm a new lawyer, but I have argued things in court and I do have the training to do a trial. And then I also have like my performance background. So I don't think there's a better combination of things that's going to be able to use tribal and take Jeff's questions and turn them into advantage. Like I always got crap like doing theater and stuff because I was always last to remember my lines, but I feel like they're more guidelines than actually say these things. You know what I mean? But some people worked really well with it. Other people didn't. I had to learn my lines.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that being said, yeah, I think again, Jake's very unique background lends a lot of credence to tribal council, where I think has increasingly become one of the most important parts of the game, not only in voting people out, but especially in the post-merge section of the game, like appealing to the jury. That's why the Edge of Extinction people loved Rick Devens, is because he was creating a show for them. I will also say, I am going to be so excited for Jake's confessionals. I think in true essence of his fellow masshole Rodney, he's got to be doing impressions of his fellow cast members, right?
Yeah, he's got impressions. I like this. So he appreciates some of these really big characters and wants to bring something to it. So excited.
Yeah, and I think, again, there's been a lot of talk as to, oh, do they do villains anymore on Survivor? And I don't think he's as overt as someone like Caleb about how, oh, I'm going to be a villain. But I do think it's interesting that he is very upfront of, yeah, I'm going to blow smoke up a bunch of people's asses at Final Tribal Council. And not to say that that wasn't done. We certainly had people arguably exacerbate their roles in the game. But the fact that Jake is being very open about how, yeah, you know what? I might say things that are not exactly true, and they could watch it back at home and perhaps argue that I was lying about it. But by then, I will have cashed my $1 million check, and they can cry about it all the way to the bank.
Okay, let's go back to Jake.
Some people worked really well with it. Other people didn't. I had to learn my lines.
Yeah. So that being said, I was going to ask you, if you have one life experience you feel has prepared you, is that from that like occupational stuff, the multifacetedness that you have with your theater and your lawyering, or is there like another life experience you had that you feel like is actually going to make you a good Survivor player?
I think so. It's kind of in tandem, two things, right? So when I went to law school, like I tell everyone, law school is kind of like boot camp, like mentally, like it's supposed to break you down and then build you back up to think in a more efficient, more logical manner. And then during the time in law school is when I finally like stopped binge eating and I adopted a healthier lifestyle. And so kind of like the more healthier I made my lifestyle, the better I did in school. And better I did in school, the more motivated I was to, deal with my eating problems and like work on myself. So like when I was studying for the bar, all I did was study and work out, and it was just able to get me in the right mindset. And I think like that hard work and determination that like I entirely like reorganized myself over the course of 2 to 3 years. And like I ran my first Spartan race this last year, and that was like a super emotional experience because like I like at 15, I would have never imagined I would do that. You know what I mean? And it's just, that was a big moment for me. And so I feel like I know how to work hard. During law school, I worked 2 jobs. Like I'm not a person who was taking the weekends to ride yachts, because my daddy's not a lawyer. You know what I mean, man? I didn't have the money to do that.
How do you think people are going to perceive you in this game? You have so much of a diverse background to you. How much of that do you think people are going to pick out when they're making assessments of you?
So I think the first thing people are going to realize that I'm loud. I think the thing is that like people say it like, Jake, like you come across like you used to be a football player. I'm like, no, dude, like I can name more Broadway actors than MLB players or something. You know what I mean? Like I really can. And like, I think as soon as people get to talk to me, they're going to realize that I'm not like, dude, I like drinks with fruit in them. That's just like my thing. Like I'm not a big beer guy. I'm not a big car guy. You know, I hate driving. It freaks me out. I do drive reluctantly, but I think people are going to see that they might have this idea, oh, he's a big Boston bro. He's probably going out drinking with his buddies on the weekend or whatever. And like, I'll do that from time to time, but like, I'm not like, I work with kids. I work in juvenile court. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big bruiser. I mean, like
a bruiser.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are you seeking out in others, especially when it comes to yeah, let's talk about this perception because it hasn't really been discussed. I think we talked about this in the first podcast that like maybe one person mentioned someone that might be alluded to as Jake, but I do feel like getting to come in and sort of defy those first impressions is something that works really well, especially when it's the oppositional, right? That like, okay, you thought I was the big jock, but actually I'm the softy with a heart of gold. We talked about this with Austin as well.
If he could disavow the New England Patriots, that would go a long way for me.
I mean, he doesn't really know a lot about the New England Patriots, so I'm sure he just
He said he doesn't know any MLB players.
Yeah, I guess in honor of his improv lifestyle of not knowing his lines ahead of time, I'm sure he would just be able to go with it. But again, I don't know. Maybe it's just like the way Jake is coming across, but I felt charmed by him in the moment. And I think that's going to be the case as well. He does talk in his bio about how one of his pet peeves, besides motorcycles, which makes sense given the the hesitancy to drive, is people who take themselves too seriously. And so I think, honestly, this Rob might become like a veritable clown car if we have the Three Stooges of pun-loving Brando, drunk Uncle Bruce, and don't take myself too seriously, Jake.
Yeah. Can I give you a Survivor comparison of who Jake could be like?
Oh, I have one in mind as well, but give me yours.
Okay. Could Jake be like a modern day Jim Rice?
Oh, that's interesting. Jim Rice. I could see that. I mean, he has those vocal chops, right? He can teach kids the Lion King. Could he perform Brando's dad? You screwed me over.
Yeah, I think Jim Rice was like a little bit more like chomping at the bit to be like get out there and be a little bit more underhanded. Like I think that Jim Rice really wanted to be more of a villain than Jake is wanting to be. But I do feel like that they have like a similar type of energy, like coming into the game. Like, hey, like I'm not like the athletic guy. Like I'm not really like the broy guy that you might think I could be. And he's somebody who I think is going to have like a little bit of a different agenda than people are suspecting.
See, that's interesting because I looked at his vocal mannerisms and what I thought of Rob when even talking with him is, yeah, this is like the buttoned up son of Judd Sargent with the amount of times he said man and the fact that he has this kind of boisterous attitude about him. Now, look, Judd obviously graded on a lot of people, especially as the game wore on. And I think Jake is more capable of that decorum to, not stand up in the middle of tribal council. Though, again, maybe if he wants to make a theater show of it, he certainly could. But I think there is just in the way he's speaking. I mean, obviously he's going to lie about being a lawyer. To be candid, I wouldn't expect him to be a lawyer by the way that he's speaking. I think it's just, he speaks very down to earth and almost commonly, as much as I don't want to say that like lawyers can't speak common, to use, I guess, D&D parlance, since I know that Jake knows that as well. But I just think the way that Jake comes across is so affable, especially when he's going to get to know people and they're going to get to know him. And they say like, oh, I thought you were this like frat bro douche from Boston, but it turns out you're actually this really sweet soul.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Jake.
Brute. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are you seeking out in others, especially when it comes to alliance mates? What characteristics are you looking for?
So I'm looking for people who can't lie. Like, I think one of the things that is going to benefit me in this game is that one of the things that I read a long time ago, and it pisses my parents off, but the more people, and this, I don't know if I get in trouble for this, but the more people cuss, the more people believe they're being honest. Like that's an actual psychological fact.
Oh, Jared.
So I might drop a few more 4-letter words than everyone else, and people will
You're
think
going to cost the show so much money in standards.
I'm going to try to avoid it. I'm going to try to avoid it where I can. But like that works psychologically. Like,
So
I don't think I come across.
Cuckoo, the more people curse, the more people believe they're being honest, or the more the people that are cursing believe they are honest?
Oh, no, it's not really a self-fulfilling prophecy thing. It's more so like if you're coming across as passionate to the point where you are peppering in all the words you can't say on television, it makes people inherently believe you more because that passion is sort of connotated to that.
Okay, got it.
Across as like a typical lawyer. So the more I can be like just me and like present myself to these other people, that's going to do better. But what am I looking for in other people? Yeah, I'm looking for honesty. Like if I sniff out that you're being dishonest with me, I'm gonna have to get rid of you. Like that's what's up. I mean, like I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna ADA, I'm gonna tell them I'm a public defender. But I feel like that job's close enough to what I do where I can be like, I'll still be a public defender in the juvenile court, but I'll just flip sides.
So when it comes to people right now that you're looking at, is there anyone that you're like making judgments at right now in preseason of like, either this is someone that I'm eyeballing that I might want to work with, or like big red flag, stay away from that person at all costs?
Yeah, so I mean, the big thing I'm sure everyone's talking about is Bruce, right? So Bruce is here. If you didn't see him already, you shouldn't be here. Like you should have watched 44. But he's someone I'm open to working with because he's like in my area. I mean, there's a lot we know about him, but there's a lot we don't know because he only played for 12 hours. But people that I'm looking at, there's a girl here who seems like she has a little wilderness training experience. She has a bunch of tattoos. She's a taller girl. She has curly hair. She's got like a fox tattoo on her leg. She seems like the kind of person who is going to try to get a lot of guys out. She hasn't been like other people you make eyes at, you know what I mean? And like nod, good morning, you know what I mean? But you can't talk to them. But she hasn't been given too many smiles and stuff. Like I've been smiling at everyone. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to do that or not, but like I haven't been getting great vibes from her.
That's Kendra.
There's a couple people I've been getting good vibes from though. There's a kid with an afro who's walking around. He looks like a great time, man. Like he's just been smiling at everyone. He's smiling at me and I see him smiling at other people. So like, I don't know if I trust him, but I'm like, I still kind of want to hang out with him. You know what I mean? But I got to watch out for that. Cause before I came out here, my girlfriend's like, Jake, you can't just trust everybody out here. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Well, let me finish by giving you someone you can trust. If you could pick a celebrity or a fictional character to come out as your loved one for a visit on Survivor, who are you picking and why?
If people aren't saying a past player, like I need a past player out here to take notes from, you know what I mean? Like that's what I want, you know? But you have a past player in your court, give me Tony to give me some advice. You know what I mean? Like I'm using that to an advantage. If I could pick anyone real or fake, give me Tony. Give me some advice and maybe give me a couple laughs too, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I think the energy you have, especially when you did that Tony impression, I think the two of you would just bouncing off each other might be like a particle collision, you know? It might
Dude, that'd be beautiful, man.
Absolutely. Well, dude, I wish you nothing but the best in everything. Best of luck, you know, as you're going through here, trying to eyeball people, trying to smile, but not smile too much. Break a leg, I should say. And,
thanks, man.
Looking forward to hopefully seeing you for your 11 o'clock number at Final Tribal Council.
Dude, thanks, Mike. This is so awesome to meet you, man.
This is awesome, man. It's so great to meet you. All the best. Thanks so much again, dude.
All right, there you go.
There we go. So,
There's Jake.
listen,
Should be fun.
Yeah, I don't want to sound repetitive after I just said it with Bruce, but I also have really high hopes for Jake as well. I could understand from a certain perspective. I think we saw this a bit with Danny last season where like he had this, again, sort of bro-y exterior with more of a soft interior that really was able to like worm his way into the hearts of people. But there was also a lot of conflict there as well.
I don't know. I feel like that with Danny, I feel like that there was a lot of talk of that, but I feel like that when push came to shove, like I feel like that it wasn't actually, as promised.
Yeah, and I think that Jake, at least in the way he's coming across here, does seem like he has that good heart and is somebody that, like, yeah, might do some villainy things, stand up, make some fireworks at tribal council like Tony, be able to lie to your face that they're keeping you when really he's going to cut his closest ally. But at the same time, just the way that he was smiling and the way that he was coming across, again, felt so relatable, at least to me, that I think he is going to win over a lot of people. And I think, you said that he might not come across as athletic. Of course, he is not like one of the physical specimens that are on this season, but like, dude did do a Spartan race.
Mhm.
That is an incredible feat of endurance. So I think he could be like no surprising slouch in the challenge. I mean, maybe I'm just manifesting that he gets to that final travel because I really am hoping he can deliver on his promise to like bring bullshit back to day 26. But I think he is also set up
Is that his
really well in this
slogan?
game. Yeah, and maybe don't put Brand or Brando that on a hat anytime soon. But I think he's set up really well from a social perspective, strategic perspective. I think he is one of these guys,
Yeah.
almost like Jam Jam Upside, Rob, where he can come across as the clown, as the comic relief. No one's going to see him coming, where like he can plot things behind the scenes and slit your throat right in front of you, and you're just going to sit and laugh at it.
Yeah. All right. It's just gonna come across with how he's perceived by the other people in the tribe. Now we've heard from three people. We've heard from the three men from this tribe, but there's a very good reason for that. Mike Bloom insisted men first.
Stop putting words in my mouth in this podcast, Rob.
It's alphabetical order. All
Yes.
right. All right, Mike, let's talk about the fourth member of this tribe today. Katurah is here.
Yeah, let's move on from the complete opposite of men first here. In Katurah tops. Katurah, 35 years old, originally from St. Louis, home of where Sifu once owned a bar, though she currently resides in Brooklyn, and she is a civil rights attorney. So we're
Okay.
going from back-to-back lawyer to lawyer here. This will be really interesting.
A
I
lot
think
of
we'll get
lawyers in the season, lawyer heavy season. And we
Yeah.
had Jay Meyer, who was going to go to law school.
Julie is an estate attorney, but what's interesting is that these two are going to be on the same tribe, and we'll talk about whether that means, a law firm is happening or they're going to be on
Mhm.
opposite sides of the courtroom here.
Okay, so many great guests for the daily Suits recap over on Post Show Recaps.
They knew it was coming,
They knew it was coming. It
You
was
traveled
hot.
back in time, you put the idea in their heads. That's why they cast so many lawyers on this season.
Okay, all right, here we go. Let's hear from our next person. This is going to be Katurah. Let's bring in your conversation with her.
Hello there. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mike Bloom. I'm with Perreault magazine, as well as Rob has a podcast. And who might I be speaking with today?
My name is Katurah.
Hello, Katurah. So nice to meet you. Give me the bio line. Where are you from? What do you do?
Oh my God, this is so crazy. I honestly they didn't even tell us we were doing this interview, so I'm just actually kind of shocked.
Welcome.
Like,
This
I
is
just learned
Survivor.
for a
And
second
everything takes you
when I
by
walked in here,
surprise.
They got you.
I know.
Yeah,
And then
Brando.
she was like, "It's Rob has a podcast," and I was like, "Wow, Rob has a podcast? Is this official?" I'm just
It's
so
technically
excited.
unofficial.
Like, I thought I was just a crazy person watching it. I didn't know you guys were so in the game. This is cool.
Hey, Katurah.
Okay, sorry. You asked me what would you want to
Where are you from and what do you do?
I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a civil rights lawyer and I've been living in Brooklyn for almost 6 years now.
Oh, wow. So how long have you been involved? Because I would imagine, obviously the law came first, but specifically with the civil rights side of things.
I've been involved in the civil rights side of the law since before I was a lawyer. So I've been an attorney for about 8 years now. Actually, next month will make 8 years. And civil rights work has always been my passion and my focus. You start off a little bit and you can't always jump right into it because, you got to get the bills paid and work at the big law firms. So I did my dues with that. But yeah, now I'm, proud to be like working at one of the top civil rights law firms in the country.
Yeah, and that is, obviously incredible work now more than ever, especially. Where did that come from? Is there just like a general sense of like generosity and justice that you've always had that allowed you to want to pursue this line of work?
Oh, I love that. Just a general sense of generosity and justice. I wish I could say that was my story. Unfortunately, no. It's really just, being a Black person in America. Like, if you're a blind person, you can see just how deeply normalized racial injustice is. And I just remember being a child and looking around and just noticing, like, there are certain communities that, don't have access to basics like healthcare and clean water and food and schools, and realizing most of the time that was impacting my community and just deciding to do something about it.
That's amazing. So then, that being said, with what you're able to do for your community, cut to Survivor, an inherently like cutthroat game. What made you decide to make that jump to the point where you're talking with me today?
Yeah, well, it's kind of crazy. Everybody's asking that. They're like, well, yeah, how did you get here? Like, you're so dedicated to the movement. And I'm like, I am. And it's true. My work is my everything. But, civil rights lawyers are still people, right? Like, I'm still
Absolutely.
a full, fundamental, multidimensional person.
You still got student debt.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, first of all, this 500,000, because they keep calling it a million. This 500,000 post taxes.
When Biden's done with it.
Not me going to student loans for sure. But no, I just, I work hard, and my work is emotionally draining. It's really emotionally taxing. I spend a lot of my time like in front of a laptop with emails and, doing work and rigorous deadlines. And I just wanted to remember that, like, I'm actually a adventurous, crazy, exciting person. Like, I am such a lawyer, but not only a lawyer, like, I'm ready to, be scared shitless jumping in the ocean while Jeff is screaming at me, I can do that and like defend my people too.
Absolutely. Totally. So
That'd
that
be a
being
way to do both.
so
Cuckoo.
what's your history with the show? How long have you been watching? Yeah, I really love this approach from Katurah because it's unique. I think we get so many as a blank confessionals and how much people are bringing their own occupational perspective into why they think they're going to do well in Survivor. And not to say that Katurah won't. I actually think that her ability to like see, to be the change she wants to see in the world, to see injustice around her and feel like I want to go after a career that can correct those injustices to the best of my ability, I think actually portends really well into this game where we talk about how you can't be complacent, how if you see yourself or other people in a position that you can benefit from, you got to act upon that, especially in a 26-day format. I also really love the healthy perspective of like, yeah, I do really great work, but I'm not just my work. And it's interesting to have her approach going on to this adventure of a lifetime as almost an escape from her daily life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what else she's able to bring to the game. Okay, here's more Katurah.
Absolutely. Totally. So
That'd
that
be a
being
way to do both.
So, what's your history with the show? How long have you been watching people scared shitless jumping in the ocean while Jeff Probst yells at them?
Well, I mean, I feel almost embarrassed to say it at this point because I know everybody is pretty much diehard super fans from like day one, since they were kids. I actually haven't been watching Survivor since I was a kid. I kind of rediscovered it, I would say in 2020. The world was crazy. My job specifically deals with police violence on Black people. So George Floyd had just been murdered. I was dealing with that, working directly. COVID was hitting. It was like, really just terrible. Everything was just going to shit. And I was just like, I need an escape. And I just saw like an episode or season of Survivor on Netflix. And then I started watching it and I was like, I remember this. You know how you like remember like having seen it like years ago, but not like really watched it. And I started watching it with my like adult eyes. And I was like, I fucking love this show. Like, oh my God. And I binged watch. I'm telling you, 2020 and 2021, my Paramount Plus membership was off the chain. I got full use of that $13.99. Like I was
Wow, what an endorsement.
Survivor.
Even more than Red.
And then like last year, it was last year. I had Survivor on in the background as I usually do. It was literally just like my comfort show. And I don't know, I was just having a really rough day, and I was tired, and I was looking at people do stuff, and I was like, why are you just watching this? Why haven't you applied? What are you doing? Like, what's the reason not to? And I kid you not, I just like told myself, okay, I'm going out to dinner this night, so I'll like look halfway decent. So since I'm gonna like put on some makeup and look decent, go ahead and make my casting, application video, whatever it is. And don't think anything of it, record it, send in the first draft. I did exactly that, and they called me 2 days later.
Wow. So that being said, as someone who, blitzed through a lot of Survivor, give me one Survivor winner and give me one Survivor non-winner that you identify with the most. Could be personal, could be strategic, how you want to play the game. One winner, one non-winner.
I actually have one name for both of those.
Okay, amazing.
Oddly enough. The first person that always comes to mind is Natalie. And I'm talking about Natalie, who has the twin sister, not Natalie who went with Russell.
Yes, Natalie Anderson, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody ever means Natalie
Just,
Anderson.
I never know. We got a Chris Doherty reference.
Winner's Award, she didn't win. So she's also kind of a non-winner there. So I feel like she hits both of them. But I just love her badass spirit. Like, I just saw something in her that said, I remember when there was that crazy, ridiculously extreme task that they had to do for like one token, and everybody was like dying, and she just kept going. And then at the end, when she finished, she just kind of released all of this emotion and just like cried her heart out. And I really identify with that moment, because that's kind of how my life has been. It's like, you gotta go, you gotta get it done. You really don't have time to stop and be worried about anything. Just get it done. And then, you can cry about it later. And so that's kind of what I feel like I'm bringing into Survivor. Like, I'm going to figure it out. And then, when you go to the confessional, then that'll be your time to like cry and like get all the, oh my God, today was crazy out.
Cuckoo. Yeah. What's one life experience you feel? So maybe this is another hot take, Rob. I feel like we are starting to see a shift in this question. Is Natalie Anderson the new Parvati Shallow?
Yeah, I feel like that Parvati kind of rarely comes up in terms of the person that you want to be remembered for. Now, again, in people who are maybe newer fans to the show, I mean, Parvati's last like successful run of the season came in a season that aired in 2010,
but was on Netflix.
But was on Netflix. That is true. Whereas in the real time, Natalie, her game was from in 2020, and was also, I think, people that want to like have prowess, even though ironically Parvati was very good in the individual competitions, I think gets remembered more for being somebody who is like known for manipulating the men in the tribe, and I feel like that's not necessarily the type of gameplay that people are coming in trying to replicate. Whereas I think that Natalie is just seen as a badass challenge beast, somebody who is just going to come in and, play really hard, take no nonsense, and, win comps.
Which is wild, because you look at San Juan del Sur, and like, she was playing a hell of a cutthroat game, what she was doing to John Mish. Jacqueline, did you vote for who I told you to vote for? Like, those are badass moves, but in a very different way. I feel
basically
like
a badass, yeah,
and I feel like the tenacity is also a big element of that as well. I mean, Katurah here mentions that log task to get the one fire token, and she also has the narrative of being voted out first, living on the edge of extinction for the entire season, and then nearly winning this season, which I think, granted, Parvati was on the same season and didn't do as well, that perhaps she has more of this like big narrative of you can do anything you put your mind to, as opposed to what Parvati's narrative is.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Katurah.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
One particular experience that's prepared me for the game? I don't really have one thing specifically, but I mean, honestly, like, I walk through the world every day as a Black queer woman. Like, all three of those identities put me at risk of danger at all times. Like, I'm always alert. I'm always in survival mode. I'm always watching, is this going to be the group that doesn't like me? Is this going to be the people that feels bothered by me? In some ways, I'm socially at the bottom, you know, in many different ways. And a lot of times I don't have advantages and I just kind of have to like figure it out, you know? I was just telling the producers, we were laughing. I was like, you know, whatever happens, whatever crazy twist they throw at us, I feel confident that I can figure it out because I've figured out everything else. You know, I didn't know anybody who went to college before I went to college. I didn't know anybody who went to law school before I went to law school. Like, all of those things in my life have just been brand new. And I just jumped in and prayed for the best. And I'm hoping it works here too.
Well, yeah, to that point about, identity and the way people see you, how do you think you're going to be perceived in this game? How do you hope you'll be perceived in this game?
Ooh, I'm nervous. I don't know. I really don't know. I was watching like how all the people on Twitter were responding to this, you know, season 43 cast and 44 cast, and just kind of seeing how like what people respond in general. And I was trying to think like, okay, well, what would they might say about me? Honestly, I have no idea. I think I'm very unique. I don't think that I can like fit into a particular box. I think people might be rooting for me on one hand because I'm like perpetually an underdog. On another hand, people might be annoyed by me because sometimes I'm cranky, sometimes I'm, you know, a little spoiled.
Same.
I'm a little bit clumsy. I trip a lot. I'm praying that I do not trip or fall, like, you know, at a critical time or near a machete. You know, those are the things I'm like going into the game being like, just avoid the machetes, avoid, you know, like I honestly don't know. Like it could be overwhelmingly positive. It could be overwhelmingly negative, but I've already told myself it doesn't even matter. Like this is a journey for me. I don't often get to do things for me. Most of what I do is for and in service of others or thinking about others. So, you know, this is to set my soul on fire. So it'll be good either way.
Are you looking at, other people when it comes to making alliances and seeing certain things that you want? What do you seek out in like a ride or die or a number one?
What I seek out in an alliance member is unrelenting, illogical loyalty. Like I want them to be so connected to me that they're like, I don't even care if I don't win. I want you to know so and so is trying to blindside you, and I'd be like, thank you. This is exactly what we wanted. I want that like Laurel to Wendell loyalty.
Oh.
Like, you know, I think Dominic said like as soon as there was a tie and he knew that Laurel had to cast a tiebreaker, he was like, I knew I lost then. And I was like, I want an alliance partner so close to me like that it's just not a shadow of a doubt that they're gonna just ride for me. Now
Cuckoo. Yeah, I've never heard that phrase that way before, but I love illogical loyalty.
Yeah, which is hard to come by, especially nowadays when I feel like they're casting such hyper aware people of the game that inevitably they have to feel like, okay, I have to cut this person down the line. But who knows? I think at the end of this, we could talk about some possible partners that Katurah might be able to find. I mean, she comes off incredibly friendly. I know that she said she could be either overwhelmingly positive or overwhelmingly negative, but I think she can endear to certain people. I mean, of the three guys we've talked about so far, I don't necessarily know if they'll go completely over the edge in giving her their full loyalty without questioning a single thing that she's doing. But
Yeah.
listen, manifest something, put it out there in the universe, give me an ally that will not even give a second thought to everything I tell them to do.
Yeah. Nothing about the three men that we've talked about so far in this tribe strikes me as illogical.
Yeah, I would not say so. If anything, they're all kind of like in the same wheelhouse of how they want to play, which is like putting on the clown makeup, but then behind it, there's a brain.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Katurah.
I know that that's unlikely, but I'm hoping that that's like the best case scenario. But I also know that people will be in alliance with you as long as it's beneficial to them. So I'm really hoping just for people who are like reasonable and logical, and we can say like, sure, at some point, it may not be logical for us to be alliance members and we can try to cut each other's throat then, but let's at least get the next 3 votes together, you know?
Of the people that you are with right now, are there any specific individuals where you're like, I see you, I want to work with you? Are there specific individuals you're looking at and saying like, red flag, make sure to get rid of you as soon as possible?
Yeah, that's so crazy. Well, there's definitely two people who I was like, I definitely want to be in an alliance with them. And they're like softer, quieter, sweeter people because I think they might be good for my secret alliance. Like I want to have a public one and I want to have a secret one. And I think having like someone that people just deem like soft spoken and kind of can easily look over and not think too much of would be great. I'm thinking like an Erica and Heather duo energy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I can't honestly, there's two people who I was like, I definitely can feel like negative energy from them, not loving them. And then literally today, like we all like took a boat together and like I saw a different side of them and I was like, okay, well maybe they'll be not, like, so I don't know. Like I feel like it can change. Like I'm just keeping it open.
So I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say you're at your tribe camp, hanging out at the beach. A boat pulls up, some guy gets out, and you have to pick one person to go on a journey. Now,
I personally have to pick them or the tribe has to?
The tribe gets to. So, like, are you stepping up in the moment? Are you trying to, like, get someone else to go in your place? Because these things can be both good and bad.
Now, I am damn well not getting on that boat.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I mean, I will fake an injury to not get on that boat.
Doesn't have to fake one.
The only way that I'm willing to get on the boat is if it's, deep enough, I would say, into the game where I feel quote unquote comfortable, because you can never be fully comfortable, but comfortable enough to where I know I could go, come back and lie, and either people would believe it or it wouldn't be the end of the world. Like I have a strong enough alliance and I could tell people what I got and they'd be fine with it.
So how does that translate to advantages for you? Like, are you going to be hungry to look for everything as long as you don't have to get on a boat, or are you staying away from it as much as you are the journeys?
Oh, no. I know I'm going to need advantages. I already know, like, my goal is to play the kind of low-key character and, be a little bit in the background. But realistically, I don't think my personality allows that. So I know at some point I'm going to be a target. Like, I know that. So the only reason I'm saying not getting on the boat is just in those beginning days. Like I'm not going to be the first person on the boat, because then you've not made a really deep connection with anybody. You know what I mean? It's easy for someone to say he probably got something, and then everybody's looking for an easy, comfortable vote off, right? I'm not trying to do that. I already know who's the only person in Survivor history who's got voted off first twice. A Black woman lawyer. Yeah, I'm not trying to repeat anything like that. So I am being super cautious those first couple votes. After that, I'm absolutely looking for advantages. Absolutely looking for idols. If it requires me sneaking away, doing whatever, that I will be doing it. Absolutely.
Last question. If you could pick a celebrity or a fictional character to bring out as a loved one, who are you picking and why?
To bring out as a loved one? Oh. Ooh. Do I even care about any celebrity or fictional character enough to I mean, like, the loved one is supposed to be like, I'm at my lowest moment and I'm filthy. These people are trying to get me. I need love and support. I don't know if I would want it from a random celebrity who doesn't know me. You know what I mean? I think I'd much rather have it from a family member. I don't know. I can't think of anybody.
All right, you may be like the first person I've ever asked this to who said, I'm good. Send him back. I'm fine without him.
Well, I think I'd rather be like, can you send my family? Like, send people who know me, who can like give me encouragement. Like, they're really gonna say, you can do it, you're strong, but they don't really know if I can do it or if I'm strong. They're just saying it. I need somebody who's like, I know you, Katurah. Don't fuck up this, or sorry, I didn't mean to curse.
Wow.
Do that. You know what I mean? Like, I need people who are like, can be honest with me and tell me about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are so happy that we got to know you over the course of this interview. You're just such a delight, and I'm so excited to see the perspective that you bring. I think is so great, and to bring that hopefully into the game and translate into $1 million check or $500,000 at the end of the day is it's gonna be awesome. So I'm really excited to see your journey. Just watch out for the machetes.
Oh, absolutely. It is my number one rule. Do not get medically evacuated. That is the number one rule. I'm like, it doesn't matter how good your strategy is. If you fucked up around that machete and you're out, like, and everything goes shit. So yes, thank you so much, Mike. It was good talking to you too.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
So there's Katurah. She seems very fun. I think we're going to get really good confessionals from her. And I can't wait to hear her talking about some of the other people that she's out there with. I am really interested to see how this goes. I'm hearing a lot from Katurah about all the things that she's like, okay, I'm not going to let this happen to me. I'm not going
Mhm.
to, it feels like, I feel like that she's coming like at the game from like a little bit more of like a defensive posture as opposed
Interesting.
to some of the other people that we hear from. And I can't wait to talk to these people. Like, I feel like, I feel like that she seems to me she's like almost like bracing for I'm going to protect myself from these worst case scenarios as opposed to how am I going to go out there and find my people.
Which I think makes so much sense given her background. She is a
Yes,
queer Black
sure.
woman. She has been associated many times with this bias of being overly attacking, of being aggressive, even when she doesn't mean to be. So I think it makes sense from her as a reflex to like guard herself against that, considering that, as she mentioned, the only person to be voted off first twice is a Black woman lawyer, much like herself. And so I think she's looking to change history in many ways by perhaps guarding against some of those pitfalls that might befall somebody like her. I do agree. I think that unfortunately did take a bit away from how she plans to approach the game from a more proactive perspective. We obviously heard about that illogical loyalty she's pursuing, though even she kind of steered away from that, saying, I know that in and of itself is illogical. So let me just go with somebody that like we can have like an understanding with of, yeah, we'll work together for a few votes and then mutually part ways. Something that I honestly think she could do with Jake. We could see
Mhm.
perhaps the opposite of what happened with Cody and Justine, where instead of real recognize real and Jake or Katurah is like, oh, we got to get rid of this other lawyer, they could instead decide to cooperate.
Yeah.
I think also her idea of like, I'm going to be sort of like the behind the scenes character for a little bit and then my personality will come out. I feel like that's actually relatively easy to do given the general dynamic of this
Yeah.
tribe.
So let me just ask a question about Katurah and Jake, where maybe could Jake get screwed up or even potentially Katurah? So Jake is going to not lie about the fact that he's a lawyer, but he is
Yeah.
going to say that he is a public defender when he is in fact not a public defender.
Right.
Which I feel like that Katurah, as a civil rights lawyer, I think is going to be somebody who is going to be able to see through that lie and be able to ask like the right types of questions to know, okay, this guy is full of it. He is not a public defender. And so do you think that then if she is truthful about what she is doing as a lawyer, is that the kind of thing where Jake is going to say, hey, I think we need to get rid of Katurah because he's going to know that she's somebody who could see through his lie and that you better get rid of her before she catches on to me lying about being a public defender.
That's interesting. Sort of shades of back to the season that made Jake fall in love with the show and caused his father to walk in at bad moments. Going back to the Philippines, is this a Jeff Kent, Sarah Dawson situation
Mm-hmm.
of like almost my secret in a manner of speaking? We can't keep you around for that reason. That certainly is possible. I could also see a bit of like mutually assured destruction where I'm not sure if Katurah is going to. I'm sure she'll say she's a lawyer, but I think much like Jake, she won't go so extensively into the stuff that she does. But there could be at least this initial understanding between the two of them of like, listen, I know the stereotypes against us are that we are slimy and we are shady. If we work together, sort of like look out for each other, share the load in a manner of speaking to buck those trends, let's look out for one another.
Mm-hmm.
I do not expect that partnership to last.
Yeah, but I feel like that Katurah, she comes from it at a place as like, hey, I'm proud of like what I like. I don't think that she feels like that. And again, this is I'm just talking out of my butt, but I don't think that she feels like that for what she does that people have like a negative perception of like the law practice that she does. Maybe so. I think that she's going to be wanting to talk about what she does for her work.
Yeah, I think
And then,
especially because, like, as much as she wants to say her work is not her life, clearly this is something she's been incredibly passionate about and got her into the law in the first place. So I think it makes sense that she just naturally want to discuss it.
yeah, and it's part of her story. And I feel like that Jake, who's lying about the way that he is going to be practicing law, is going to not want to talk about that and make it be part of his life. He's probably going to want to talk about the theater or the bar or other different parts of his life.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting, which is very unique compared to the fact that, again, Katurah is saying, I don't want to be defined by the fact that I'm a lawyer. Jake certainly isn't. And so, again, I really feel like it can go either way. I know it's a little fancy fencer to answer your question, but I don't see a middle ground between these two. I either think they're going to gun for each other immediately, or they're going to become a very tight duo in this tribe and then inevitably break apart.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Mike, anything else that you want to say about Katurah?
Just a really nice way to finish off my blurb on her. Going to her bio, who is in your life is your biggest inspiration and why? Katurah, the child, RuPaul's Drag Race style. What would you say to young Katurah? She says that little girl faced some of the most unimaginable obstacles, yet still decided to protect herself, become a civil rights lawyer, and break generational curses. And she grew up and did exactly that. Now, certainly, I hope that Katurah does well enough to obviously garner a lot of experiences from it, but I do feel like from Katurah herself, getting on is almost worth the experience in general. The fact that she represents not only so many points of intersectionality, but the fact that she is someone who has kind of blazed her own trail the entire time. Again, I know she really wants to divorce her work, even though she's not a divorce attorney, from how she wants to bring her personality into the game. But I really do feel like that amount of initiative to it and that individualistic persona, if she gets enough runway under her, I think could do really well in this game.
Yeah, I also know in Bruce's interviews, he said that he doesn't want to be a part of voting women out early. He thinks that he was part of season 44 and he was part of all the discourse. So I think that he's not necessarily going to want to be a part of a tribe that sends women out. So I think that that is definitely a point in her favor. I think that Bruce is going to want to be working with her. So I think that she's going to be okay. I'm just a little like worrisome about the whole lawyer v. lawyer thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for many reasons.
Look,
in and out
I
of the
watch
courthouse.
Suits, Mike. I know what happens when a lawyer has a secret. He was going to do anything to try to protect it.
Yeah, but Suits did last longer than 26 days. So as long as she can hold out for essentially the length of like 3 episodes of Suits, as long as you and Chappelle could hold out for 26 days of Suits.
It's not her that I'm worried about. It's Jake, because that when these lawyers that something is off, then they can't stop pulling at the thread.
Yeah. I mean, that's more Bruce, though, right? Of like, I'm not going to accept your first answer as to whether or not you're a lawyer. I'm going to keep probing those questions. Bruce is really the prosecution. And we have Jake and Katurah on the defensive here.
Okay. All right. So there you have it. All right, Mike, let's talk about our next member of this tribe, and it's Kellie. What can you tell us about Kellie?
Well, we are staying in the Empire State for this next person. Kellie Nalbandian, 30 years old, originally from Weston, Connecticut, currently resides as well in New York, a critical care nurse. And I believe, if Survivor Reddit is to be trusted, is the first contestant of Armenian descent to compete on Survivor.
All right, so let's bring in Mike's conversation with
Who am
Kellie.
I talking with today?
Oh yeah, my name is Kellie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So give me the elevator pitch on Kellie. Where are you from and what do you do?
The elevator pitch.
Sure. So my name is Kellie Nalbandian. I'm 29 years old. I'm a critical care nurse in New York City. And then I also attend Yale part-time, getting my master's to become a nurse practitioner.
Steven is going to be thrilled.
Wow. So how long have you been in the medical profession? I mean, I would imagine long enough to be on the front lines of, some very wild stuff from the past few years.
Yeah. So I actually became an EMT when I was 18 years old. And then since then, I was kind of exploring, figuring out if I wanted to go to medical school or what. And then I watch the nurses that I would come across in the emergency room, and they were just the badasses running the show. And so I went to nursing school, and so it's been a long time, but yeah, about a year into my nursing career, the pandemic hit, and I was in New York City. So obviously it was it was definitely the most challenging and difficult thing I've ever had to do in my life. And, but kind of funnily, like that is the time when I discovered Survivor. And one of my friends who's also a nurse, we were, hanging out. No one wants to come within 10 feet of us because we're like infectious vectors, unfortunately. And, what are we going to do? And like, we all needed, a distraction during that time. And so it started off as that, she put on heroes, villains. And so obviously I was screwed. I was going to be obsessed.
Yeah, so that being said, when it came to like the difference between being a fan and a player, I mean, what led you from being the badass of that show to hopefully being a badass on a very different type of show? What made you feel like you wanted to come out and play this thing?
Just as I watched like almost all of the seasons in like a span of 2 years. So as I was like kind of going through them, it just started as this like little thought in my head that probably started with the Black Widow Brigade. I watched that and I was like, oh my God, this looks like so much fun. Like, I really want to do this. And I'm super competitive. I don't really get a chance to be competitive as a nurse. I grew up playing sports and, my whole family's like super competitive with like board games, like video games, anything you name it, we're competitive. So I was super drawn to this because I think that aspect of it is so fun, like the competition and the adventure. But my job is really real. Like it is people at their core. It's a really vulnerable, whether COVID or not, like, even in critical care right now, like a huge part of my job is connecting with people in like a hyper vulnerable space. And so I think when I watch Survivor, like people's stories and like how they relate to each other and that whole kind of social experiment of everything also really appeals to me. So it kind of feels right for me where it's like, I feel like I'm kind of like tough, but also vulnerable. And so is Survivor.
So from all the seasons you blitzed through with Survivor the past couple of years, give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most, personally, strategically, whatever.
Okay. There's been a lot of really great Kellies who have played this game, but I think the one that I relate to the most is Kellie Wentworth. I think that scrappy, tenacious vibe is something that we both share. And I'm a huge fan of hers. That like Wentworth does not count. Like, here's to hoping I get something like that.
No, that means you get all the
and
votes.
Then winner, I think I have to go with Parvati here. I know she's quite different from Wentworth,
she's back, baby.
I think Parv like really like represents the ability to be a woman and play aggressively and ruthlessly, but also be charming and be like kind of soft and be that person that people feel drawn towards. And that's something that I think I'm good at in my real life, that I think people are drawn to me and are friends with me, not because I'm like the most charismatic or whatever, but like I make them feel seen and heard, and I'm really authentic and promoting shared vulnerability. And I think Parv is really good at that. And in this game, you can shift that into persuasion and manipulation. And she used sort of the guise of like flirting. I'm a lesbian, so I will not be flirting with any men. Cannot stomach that. But we can do some friendship flirting. I'm also engaged, so
there we go. I was gonna say, like, don't put yourself in the doghouse. I know that, of course, there was the Natalie of the Black Widow Brigade, but let's not put ourselves in that territory either.
No, I'm not putting myself in the doghouse. First of all, she said I can do whatever I need to do to win. But no, I mean friendship flirting. And that's the same thing. It's really just making people feel like listened to and mirroring back who they are. Like everyone wants to see themselves in somebody else, and especially in this environment where it's super stressful and really chaotic, and something that I think I'm used to from my job.
Cuckoo, what's been your level of preparation? Speaking, I really want to get into some of this stuff because
friendship flirting.
Yeah, friendship flirting, because I think it is incredibly emotionally intelligent, which I think makes sense given her background. I mean, let's talk about someone who is obviously at the top of our minds following CBS reality TV this summer in none other than Cirie Fields, who is a lot of things, but let's remember, is also a nurse. And I think we've talked about this when we've had people in the medical world coming in before, that obviously there is this idea of bedside manner. I think Kellie makes a lot of valuable points, and I think nurses even see their patients in a different way than doctors do. The doctor's gonna come in for 15 minutes, check up on you, and that's pretty much it. The nurses are the ones dealing with you 24/7. The amount of interpersonal skills that must take is absolutely astounding. And I just really love the way Kellie was talking about this idea of mirroring, which is a tactic that we have seen being used in social strategy before. This idea that people want to see themselves in you. That bonds them naturally closer to you because they find something in common. And so it's not even this idea that, as she said, promoting shared vulnerability, opening up about herself, but then also this inherent relatability of saying, like, oh, it's great that you enjoy this. I enjoy this too. It's a really unconscious way, I think, to make quick bonds with people.
Yeah, and Sari, that her practice is in the medical field. That she's worked as a nurse for a very long time in operating rooms and all sorts of other environments. So it's something that does come naturally to nurses who play this game.
Yeah,
Okay?
I think, again, she'll talk about the underestimated persona that comes with nurses. But just remember, as Kellie mentions, nurses see people at their worst on a consistent basis. Not only are you seeing people at their worst, you're entrusted with taking care of them at their worst. And considering a Survivor is a game where at certain points we are going to see and perhaps live with people that are at their worst, it's an incredibly adept experience.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Kellie.
And something that I think I'm used to for my job.
What's been your level of preparation, speaking towards just how intense your job is? Once you found out you were coming out here, how much have you been putting in all the months leading up to it, considering, as you talked to me before, just like the immense amount of workload you have at this moment?
I know. So it is really hard. Like I would come home from a 12-hour shift and be like, oh my God, I have to work out. And I'm on my feet literally all day. Like, I'm a pretty strong guy. I've been working out, but I do have to like lug people who can't move in bed around, like me and my other, 120-pound friend who's also a nurse, are like dragging people around in the bed. It's really hard to fit it in for me because I school and work. But I actually applied originally in January of 2022. So it was sort of in the 43, 44 cycle. And I just was a little too late for what I was told. I was kind of a noob. So I had to learn the ropes. And, they reassured me that they would call me back and give me a shot for this round. So here I am. So I've been thinking about this for quite a long time as something that is a distinct possibility for me. So there hasn't been a day since I first got that call that I haven't thought about Survivor. And I go home to Connecticut to go to Yale and stay with my parents. So I in the backyard making fire there. It's kind of hard to make fire in a New York City apartment. So that was my like fire making station. And I've been, doing a bunch of stuff. Really, something I really enjoyed doing was reading a lot of books. So I read like The 48 Laws of Power, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Good one.
I read a lot of Ryan Holiday's books, which are based on stoicism, like The Obstacle is the Way and things like that, to sort of help me kind of philosophically prepare for Survivor. And I think, I got shift my gear a little bit. I'm excited to be devious and ruthless and things like that, but I don't do that as a nurse. So I think especially the 48 Laws of Power gets you into that kind of like Machiavellian zone.
I mean, I'm glad you made that preparation because, yeah, I would imagine to your point, you have this competitive streak and like you're excited to let that show. I feel like there is a difference between that, which might more so apply to the challenges, and like, hey, I got to know this person and now I'm going to end their life in the game. So I think it's interesting that like you're already trying to prepare.
I'm ready for it though. I'm excited.
Interesting. Yeah. So like, I don't know, how duplicitous do you plan on being over the course of this?
I think you don't need to be, I don't want to be duplicitous for no reason. Yeah, I think there needs to be a reason to lie. There's no reason to juggle like 60 lies if it's not going to get you anywhere. So I'm not like looking to come out here and like be lying right off the bat, but I'm, absolutely willing to do whatever I have to do to get myself to the end. And I do want to believe that, women in this new era can win and play a little bit more aggressively. I think it can be hard, and like women, we feel like we need to like shrink ourselves or play under the radar or whatever. And, I don't really want to do that.
So that being said, how do you think people are going to perceive you in the game?
I'm really hoping that, and I think this is true, nurses are voted the most trustworthy profession in the US like every year.
Over
and I think when you think
podcaster.
of nurses, people think of like the school nurse
Especially
who like gives them ginger ale and sends them home with their mommy, like that could not be farther from the job that I do and that I've always done, like ER and in critical care. So, if people want to think that, like that's to their peril. And I think people underestimate nurses, and I definitely want to come out here and represent well, because being a nurse isn't just about like being nice and empathetic and stuff like that. That's a huge part of the job that I love, and that's what drew me to nursing, was it's people focused. But you know, where I work and where I've worked, it's requires a lot of intelligence, and I know I'm smart. I don't think everyone will necessarily get that right away, and it's also like a physically demanding job. So it's one thing to be kind of book smart or know a lot of things, but can you actually function in high stress is what makes it unique. So I'm hoping people are just sort of, I think nursing is kind of a disarming profession, and so I'm hoping that will help me kind of let everyone feel like I'm like comforting them, and if they, you know, they have a boo-boo, I can make it better.
Well, yeah, it might be valuable. I mean,
Yeah,
you've just been
especially
seeing what's
with
been happening
Bruce.
on 44, right, where people are getting injured all
I
over
know.
the place.
I'm like, Bruce, I'm off duty. Okay. So we're not having any injuries this year. I genuinely hope no one gets injured. I need a break from nursing. And,
Yeah.
you know, they have a great medical team.
That
here.
I'm on vacation. Yeah, so let's get into, again, I think the underrated aspects that come with the profession of nursing, which is this idea that it's not just wiping people's butts, I believe, as she talks about in her 1-minute
Wow.
video. To quote her directly, she says that she's worked in places that requires you to be calm, adaptable, rational, and emotionally intelligent under tons of stress and chaos. Is that not Survivor, Rob, in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, that does sound very much like Survivor. I, never really, maybe I'll pick the first lady of podcasting's brain a little bit about if the hospital is like the Survivor environment.
I mean, I think your life is on the line rather than other people's, but I do think the ability to handle crisis, it's a little bit apples to oranges, but I think maintaining that composure, trying to think through things in a rational manner really applies to a fast-paced game like Survivor. And yeah, doing a bit of fact-checking, according to the Yale School of Nursing, which might be a bit in-house considering that's where Kellie currently attends, but there's an article from February 7th, 2022, nurses are most trusted profession for 20th straight year. So indeed, it sounds like at least if the polls are right, then at least for 2 decades plus, nurses have been considered the most trustworthy profession in America.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to Kellie.
Medical team.
I'm on vacation right now. It's my 26-day break. Please don't make me do this. Well, I mean, how much are you going to try to play up that generosity, though? Because I know certainly, like, perception can always be a double-edged sword where, you know, oh, you are this very nurturing person, and then how dare you stab me in the back? I'm not going to give you $1 million.
That's true. I mean, I think that's an important part of, you know, once you get to the end of the game or as you're going towards it, is reading, is the jury or certain people on the jury going to vote emotionally, or are they going to vote strategically? And that might impact how you play the game, because you do need to play the game at the end towards the jury. So, but I think, you know, I think we really should be in a generation of Survivor players that are rewarding gameplay. And, you know, personally, if I'm going to go out, I'd rather go out with a friggin' bang than, you know, have it just be walking out. So if I blindside somebody, hopefully they sort of, you know, are on the same page there. But I think that it's something that I can navigate, because I know how to kind of talk my way out of things. And I think in Final Tribal, I can do a little mix of, you know, flattery and apology, but still have it be sincere. I mean, that's a hard line to walk, but I'm going to try.
When it comes to seeking out other people, you kind of mentioned it previously in your answers, but are there certain characteristics you're looking for ideally in like a number one or ride or die?
You know, I don't want to go out with like a huge set plan, because I mean, the people who are out there, I have no idea who they're going to be. So I think a lot of it is really, for lack of a better word, like vibes. Like, am I understanding them? Like, are we on the same frequency? Like, I definitely want to play with people who I have mutual respect for. And I think we're kind of in an interesting part of the new era where you have all these people who've won who aren't really traditional threats. So coming into this season, like, what even is a threat? I don't know. And so like using that to sort of build bridges, you know, I'm not afraid to work with people who are like physically strong or seen as, you know, intimidating. I think that could be beneficial for me, sort of as a shield, but hopefully in a more of a partnership type way. But, you know, there's not really I'm not excluding anyone. I really want my game to be about having options.
So that being said, when it comes to first impressions, I mean, describe, you know, to me, is there someone out there right now amongst all these people you're walking around with at Ponderosa? Is there someone in particular that you're like looking at saying, yeah, this could be someone I could go with? Is there someone you're looking at and saying like, big red flag, do not want to work with them?
For me, when at Ponderosa, no one's talking, so it's really like I definitely feel more inclined to go with people who do make eye contact, will smile and things like that. And some people are a little bit more stone-faced and stoic and are kind of like heads down following the rules. And that sort of sets a little bit of alarm bells off for me, because I definitely want to, in my allies or anyone in the game, like I want to keep people around that I understand and that, I can connect with them and they will be vulnerable with me so that I can understand who they are and think about how they might play the game, think about how they might vote in the end. So, I'm not ruling anybody out, but there's definitely a couple people that I think, it could be fun. We'll see. I would like to play with women. I'm not going to lie. We'll see. I'm not, I'm not in any camp, I think I can easily bro out with some dudes if I need to. But
Cuckoo, she said she doesn't like people that follow the rules.
No, she does, I think. I mean, it's not certainly on the level of like Sabaya or someone like Katurah of like, oh, I want unrelenting loyalty. You sit in your seat and you like it. I mean, what I really like about Kellie is that you could argue these past couple answers, okay, they're wishy-washy. Name names, Kellie. What are you doing? Give us a set game plan. But honestly, with her, maybe I'm just suckered in, but I do feel like she can sort of go with these vibes. She can go with the flow and actually do well. That she doesn't need to come in with a set game plan as to who she wants to work with, as to who she's eyeballing as someone that she could connect with or work against down the line. That, again, considering the various types of people that she interfaces with on a daily basis, considering the fact that, as she mentioned, she kind of comes from this very unique background where she does come from the world of sports, so she can bro down a bit. She's able to get along with a bunch of different people, that she actually could be somebody that comes in saying, yeah, I'm just going to take whatever is thrown to me and bat it out of the park and actually be able to do so.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to Kellie.
I think, it's hard coming off season 44, especially like we need to sort of look out for each other a little bit.
So I'm going to put a scenario in front of you. Let's say it's in the pre-merge, you're hanging out with your tribe. A boat comes and says, okay, tribe, you got to pick one person to go on a journey. Now, these things could be both good and bad. Are you sticking to your competitive side and volunteering for it? Are you trying to put someone else in there instead? What's your strategy for handling that type of thing?
I think my strategy for handling that is like, I want to see if anyone volunteers and shoots their hands up, because to me, that's a red flag. And I think that's an easy target to paint on somebody. If they want to be like, I want to go to the advantage island, like whether they lose their vote or they don't, like, then that puts a target on their back for me. So obviously I want to find idols and advantages and things like that. That's so much fun, but the early game, it's very perilous. Losing your vote can impact you and your allies. Interestingly, right. I think a lot of people who lose their vote, actually their ally goes home, which is really concerning.
That's true.
So that might be a factor in who I'd want to send to the island, whether it's me or, hopefully not somebody I'm working with.
Last question I want to ask, I'll throw another scenario at you. If you could bring one celebrity or a fictional character out for a loved one's visit, who would it be and why?
Okay, well, this is kind of funny. I just watched the Hunger Games before I came here, which I kind of feel like this is the closest thing we have to like real Hunger Games. It better not be. But like maybe Katniss, like she is such a queen. Like, give me a bow and arrow. I don't think I know how to do archery, but maybe she could teach me if that comes up in a challenge. I think she's just like a super inspirational, powerful figure. So.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so there's Kellie. Now look, Rob, in this new era,
yeah,
I have a habit where I will look at particularly these younger women and I will say, I think they're going to absolutely kill this game. Sarah Wilson, Justine, even Claire last season. And look what happens. They say insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. But if nearly a decade of podcasting has taught anybody anything, is that I am insane.
Yeah.
Kellie Nalbandian is my winner pick for Survivor 45.
Okay, lock it in.
Yeah. Listen, I'm riding a bit of a high. I did pick Jam Jam last season, so I'm gonna see if I can make it. I'm gonna see if I can make it 2 for 2. I just got such a good feeling from Kellie, because I feel like, again, I go back to this idea of emotional intelligence. I think she said so many things that make sense for this era of the game, whether it's what even is a threat, which I think is something that we have even spoken about as to like, we're here are prototypical people that do well in the game. They almost always get eliminated. And so you have to be able to look out for everybody. And Rob, she quoted something that you brought up, nary but 2 podcasts ago, about how those who get targeted in these early stages are not those that go get advantages, but the closest ally of those people. So I think she's someone who has such a really good head for this game.
She definitely knows her stuff. I could see her being a real contender, somebody who I think could perform in the challenges, somebody who knows the game, but doesn't really like pop in terms of like the bigger personalities that you're going to be looking for. I mean, it's been interesting in the new era. You have 2 super magnetic personalities who won the game and 2 people who sort of were very like bland personalities who weren't really that exciting. So it's hard to say like which way this 5th winner of the new era is going to go.
I mean, it might be somewhere in the middle. We've talked about how the winners of this new era have been incredibly unique. Maybe we're going back to someone that might be more prototypical as a winner that you might see in the 30s, because perhaps then things have come full circle where now, to Kellie's point, everyone is watching out for those kooky characters, not wanting to underestimate them. That, hey, here's Kellie in the corner just wanting to like share these times she was vulnerable with everybody, and they're going to completely underestimate her. She reminds me a lot of Lindsay from season 42, where like I think she has this hidden athleticism to her. I know that she said like she says in her 1-minute video, right, like she flexes her biceps saying, well, this isn't that big, but this is big for me. But like again, she's someone who seems to be always involved in competitive sports when she was young, so I feel like that's not something you necessarily curb. And I just keep going back to what she does on a daily basis and having to connect it back to Cirie. We haven't had a lot of nurses play Survivor, but look at the interpersonal skills that they have to bring in consistently on a daily basis. If there is someone who can be on their feet physically, emotionally, mentally, 24 hours a day, triaging some of the worst case scenarios, I think it is somebody like Kellie. I think she's really personable as well. I will say, like, the one nit to pick is that she gave me probably the most nervous energy in this interview. She talks about wanting to make eye contact with people. You saw her working away a lot, flipping her hair a lot. I do think that will go away once she actually gets in front of people and not just this jamoke on a computer screen in front of her. I don't know. I have really, really high prospects. I'm ready for my heart to get broken again. But I do think she has what it takes in so many ways.
Yeah. The only thing that gives me pause is but 2 seasons ago, I picked Ellie as my winner pick. So again, this is similar. I feel like archetype Ellie to Kellie. I don't know. I'm gonna like it's giving me pause. Okay, but let's talk about one final person here in this cast of 18, somebody who's come up quite a bit in these different preseason conversations. Mike, what can you tell me about Kendra?
Yes, making her way up the stairs. Last, but certainly not least, I will say one of my favorite interviews that I got to do with this excellent cast, Kendra McQuarrie. 31 years old, originally from Haverhill, Massachusetts, currently lives in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And listen, you mentioned Kellie. Let's bring in another daytime host. As I mentioned before, this is unquestionably the Drew Barrymore of Survivor.
No, we're not talking about Drew Barrymore right now, Mike.
Are we scabbing by bringing up Kendra at this moment?
We're not doing that. Okay?
Yeah, I would say this comparison was a lot more positively connotated a week ago when I made it, but I really think once you hear her, you cannot unhear it.
Okay. Least favorite member of the cast of ET behind my number 1 favorite, ET. Okay.
I mean, listen, it's always tough to finish second behind him.
Okay. All right. Let's bring in Mike's conversation here with Kendra.
Yeah. How are you doing? I'm Mike from Perreault from RHAP. Very nice to meet you. Give me the bio line. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm Kendra. I live in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and I'm a bartender server.
Interesting. Is this something that you've done for a while now? Or because I know that I believe in something you wrote that I gotten word of that you left college right before it ended to go build Earth ships in the middle of the desert.
Oh,
and
speaking
I am
of
just
ET.
astounded by that sentence and what it might mean.
That was like the beginning to my crazy Kendra shenanigans, let's just say. Yeah, so I learned what earthships were because I was in environmental studies in college. But basically, they're self-sustained houses made out of recycled materials. So you dig into the ground a little bit, and then you get car tires. Essentially, places will actually pay you to take the car tires from like old tire warehouses, whatever. And then you spend all day pounding these tires. You have a dirt bitch. The dirt bitch gives you the dirt to pound the
What?
tires in, and you create
What'd
these
you call
kind
me?
of like tire bricks. You build up a wall, cement in the holes, and that's the basic foundation of an earthship. They collect rainwater. There's 3 cycles that the water goes through. Then it goes into a I forget what the word's called, but basically goes outside, and usually that's where you can grow like flowers, whatever. And then inside, so there's solar, passive solar for the house. So it's always built at a south-facing angle. And there's earthships in the middle of Taos, New Mexico that grow bananas year round.
Interesting.
Like there's banana trees in the house. Yeah. So you have this symbiotic relationship with the house. It's like when I shower, the shower water goes to the toilet, and then the toilet water, you know what I mean? And then, or shower, that water goes to the plants, then the plant water goes to the toilet, and the toilet goes outside, So it's just like this really amazing, and they're all off grid, solar ran. They're just amazing houses, and more people should know about them. The best part is that you have to drink to build your house. So, get a 30-pack, crush a couple cans. One of my friends, he has a whole bottle of Bombay Sapphire bottles. It's super pretty in his bathroom, and you use cement and you create bottle can walls.
Wow. So tell me.
Wait, she said you have to drink to build this.
I mean, I don't think it's a requirement. I think it's an encouragement.
Mike, she said you have to.
Okay, well, I'm kind of chastise the Earthship Foundation for promoting alcoholism, I suppose. Though they could be like O'Doul's bottles, I suppose, that you want to line your walls with.
Do you know how much Bombay Sapphire you have to drink to build a wall out of gin bottles?
I don't know how long it takes to build an Earthship. From what it sounds like, you have to hook up the shower water to the toilet water and hook up a solar grid. I mean, no wonder this girl left college. This sounds like an absolute time sink, and I'm not talking about the dirt bench.
Okay.
Now listen,
non-zero
non-zero chance, Rob. Could we get the reprise of Rupert's infamous dugout shelter with Kendra leading the charge on this tribe?
Okay, I'm looking at some pictures of some Earth ships. They do look kind of cool. When you see that the picture, like the house made out of tires, was not doing this justice.
Yeah, I think that the way Kendra described it, I think even she admitted, like walking through the comprehensive process, I was very delighted by, because this is something I had no idea what it was until she so voluminously talked it through with me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go back to Kendra.
And it's really cool.
Yeah, so tell me about how you've gone from constructing earthships in the desert to possibly constructing shelters on the beach. What brings you to Survivor?
Oh my gosh. What brings me to Survivor is that same kind of gut feeling, excited feeling that I tend to follow in my life, if you're not picking that up already. So same thing that happened with Taos, New Mexico. I was like, this is something I have to do. Everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, Kendra, what do you mean? You're gonna go build what? What are these? Da da da. And it's just like a feeling that I get about these like adventures that I go on. It's just like, this is what I have to do, and nothing's going to stop me. Same way with Survivor. I put on an episode I hadn't watched in a while. I put on an episode last summer to watch before I went to bed. No, I didn't go to bed. I stayed up for like 8 hours, completing the entire season. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. The damn birds are chirping, and I'm laying there. Am I allowed to swear?
Please.
Oh, I'm laying there. This is verbatim what I say. I could win this fucking game. And then that was it.
I believe her.
And everyone's like, Kendra, I'm like bartending. They're like, Kendra, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be on Survivor. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be on Survivor. I hadn't even applied yet, but like I knew that I was going to be on this fucking show. And then I submitted my audition tape. Fast forward June, July, September. Oh no, June, July, August, September. Fast forward 4 months. I'm walking across fucking Spain doing the Camino de Santiago by myself. And I like finally find Wi-Fi. I check in and I have an email from fucking Survivor. And then I'm like,
That's their email address.
I'm in. Like I already knew it. Like I
Is that
already
what Chet
knew when I had
promoted?
applied,
Yeah.
but like then so I'm walking across country, this country that I've never been in before, taking Survivor interviews at these hostels that I'm staying at with all these strangers. There's one day where they're like, oh, we need like a cover picture for you. Like it has to be vertical, it has to be like, you know, they needed a picture of me. So I was there alone. So I had to ask these strangers, I was like, hey, really weird question. Will you guys do a photo shoot with me on the roof? I can't really explain why, but I need a photo shoot done. It's so weird.
I mean, what a better way
Coco.
to prepare you.
Yeah.
So suffice to say, Jay's gonna think this woman is the most honest person he's met in his life, considering
Yes,
how much
very-
she is
very
swearing.
honest. You know, Mike, you know, it's a different time. We've all evolved a little bit, but every once in a while, you know, I wonder, could we send just one video out to Corinne to break open the binder?
I mean, this is absolute. Corinne would look at Kendra like Bruce was looking at his dog after 6.25 hours. Like,
Mhm.
absolute.
Not enough loose leaf currently in the United States of America.
This is one of my favorite character types in general, is just the out there personality, particularly when it comes to women. I talked about how much I loved Nora during Island of the Idols. Of course, Debbie Wanner was a big mainstay, speaking of ties seasons, and I just adore this from Kendra in so many ways. The
Mhm.
fact that she went to sleep after 8 hours of watching Survivor and said, I can win this effing show. That's all you need to know about
Yeah.
her, and I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see where we go from here.
For the game, though, of asking perfect strangers to do something you want them to do. What is one winner of Survivor and one non-winner of Survivor that you feel you associate with the most, be it personally, strategically, what have you?
Yeah, so I definitely, maybe not like outwardly, but inwardly, I definitely relate to Natalie,
back.
winners of Blood vs. Water, and who also played on Winners at War. Just her determination and drive, and like the
Technically,
fact
that was
she
San
was
Juan del
first
Sur.
on Exile Island and came all the way around, made it to the final three. The fact that she would give up her rewards to her alliances, like those things, just like being smart and being a good social player, and also being a beast on the you know, challenge side of it. I definitely relate to her a lot. Just like that inner strength and inner fire. I'm super, super competitive. And once I get my mind set on something, like it's over. Like I will accomplish whatever is in front of me. I will tackle any mountain. I'll literally do anything so I can win. And then a player that I associate with like in another way is Cody from the past, from season 43.
I mean, listen, I see you have some tattoos. I will not ask about the area where his tattoo may have been and where that applies to you, but
no butt cheek tattoo here yet, you know, who knows? But just his like wanting to have fun. So I feel like I have these like two different things inside of me. I have this like really driven, passionate, like determined part of me, and then this part of me that just like wants to have fun, that like wants to make alliances, wants to do well in the game, but also just like enjoy every single moment and not take a moment for granted. So, and I feel like Cody definitely played in that way, like just his ability to laugh about everything, the way he, you know, got those beads from everyone. That's something that I could pull off, you know, and people didn't even know. They just thought he was being like funny Cody. Just like, I hope people are just thinking, oh, she's just being Kendra. Like, I really hope that people underestimate me because I'm happy-go-lucky, you know, but like a girl version.
yeah, talk to me more about that. How do you think, or I guess in this case, hope that people perceive you?
You know, I've been told I'm intimidating. You know, I stand at around 5'10". I have broad shoulders. I am confident. I definitely walk into a room with purpose. I hold myself very like high. And I have a big personality, so I take up a lot of space, but I'm hoping that I'm also really goofy. I was class clown, elementary school, middle school, high school, was a stand-up comedian. Like, I'm always trying to do something to make people laugh. And so I'm hoping that like my goofiness and just lightheartedness and like ability to make literally anything into a joke, like kind of like takes that off. So I hope, and I'm like a spiritual woo girl, you know, like I freaking love astrology. I'm wearing coyote teeth on my earrings.
I
Like,
was wondering what those were.
like I have all these tattoos. I kind of just like have crazy hair and just, you know, whatever. I can also pretty much recite any rap song that you throw my way. So I am a lot in one, and I hope that people don't see like the competitive, like intimidating part of me, and see more of this, like I'm trying to give off like more of this, like, oh, like happy go lucky, I love to travel, like astrology, like I'm trying to play not as like aware and observant as I am, but also still be myself, because like that is still myself, but try not to be so like serious, because I am just so determined and I want to win literally so bad. I've never wanted anything more in my life.
So when it comes to the other players in the game that may be obstacles to get you to that goal, what do you seek out in an alliance partner? Are you seeking similar qualities than you, or different ones?
You know, who knows? I become friends with so many different types of people that it's just really gonna depend on like that chemistry. I would love to be, you know, find this kind of partner in crime that's kind of like fun like me, but also I tend to like, because I'm so extroverted and outgoing, whatever, I also tend to attract like more introverted people and more like quiet, calm people. So I'd love to have like an alliance. I would love to go to the end with like two pals, like with two people who I'm like literally from the genuinely the bottom of my heart, like I would be happy for any of us to win. Like, I really hope that's the case. Obviously, I'm an optimist. I'm a dreamer. Probably unlikely, but not impossible. So, you know, yeah, having somebody a little bit more grounded, because I'm very emotional. I, you know, feel everything really big. So I feel like my answer to this question is to find a partner who's like grounded and calm and can kind of like take me down a level and be like, this is reality. What you're saying is not reality, you know, but also who trust me, because I do get these really strong gut instincts, and somebody who sees and values that, you know.
Cuckoo. So when it comes to like, so let's talk things through. As much as we thought, hey, Katurah, you want unwavering, illogical loyalty. That's your Shangri-La. That's your unicorn. Enter a unicorn herself in Kendra. I think this could actually be a very potent partnership. The reason why Katurah didn't want a celebrity or fictional character as her loved one is because she wanted someone to come in who knew her and said like, hey, you're effing this up. You're effing that up.
Yeah, and Kendra might be a fictional character. It's possible.
I mean, she does feel like if Burning Man was brought to life. Absolutely. And I do think as well, like, Kendra seems like an incredibly open book, which again is something I love about these character types, like a Debbie, like a Nora, is someone who just like is unabashedly themselves. And as we talked about with Emily, there is appeal to that of like, as long as you don't grate too much on my nerves, I can absolutely work with this.
Right. So, I mean, coming into this, and I think that there is a universe where I would say that Kendra would be, you know, probably a popular pick to be the first person out of this tribe. Like, you definitely could see that universe. But, you know, in the order that we did this, where we heard from the men first, as you had requested, and then the women second. I'm joking.
I'm joking.
I'm joking. I'm like the drunk uncle. Okay. But I kind of get the sense that of the 3 tribes that we've talked about, like if there was a tribe where I feel like that the women are most likely to say, "Hey, we're not going to let a woman go home first from this group," that I do feel like that this would be the tribe. I think that all 3 of the women that we're hearing from, I think that would probably want to work with the women. And so I kind of feel like that now I'm kind of going back to our initial things. And now I'm a little bit more worried about Brando and Jake than I would have been initially.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to a similar blue tribe in Coco in 43, where at least in the moment, you had the 3 women really resolute on working together. They brought over James, and then that was basically it. Now, they do end up turning on Lindsay, but that alliance does stick through. And I wonder if we get a similar situation here, where I do think, at least initially, Katurah, Kendra, Kellie, very badly named alliance, should they choose to go in that direction. But regardless, I think are going to have a lot of strength initially by, to your point, I think being under this umbrella, especially as of late, of like, let us not repeat history here. I think we all work well together in this moment. I think Kellie is also another person, a little bit more of an introvert compared to what Kendra has said about like the personalities that she attracts. I think that this could be a trio that works really well together. And then you just scoop up Bruce. And there you go. That's a 4. Now, the question is, and we saw this with Lindsay a bit, if this tribe gets off to a winning streak to begin with, and there's enough time where Kendra starts getting into people's ears and starts, allowing that loud personality to become more of a sight as the days pass along, maybe there is a possibility where if and when this tribe faces their first vote in like episode 4, episode 5, they do decide like, yeah, I know we made that promise on day 1, but I don't think it's going to work out for Kendra. But I do think at least initially, she is in a safer position than you may think.
Yeah. Does the success of Carolyn in season 44 help Kendra or hurt Kendra?
I mean, I think it definitely, I don't think it hurts it because again, they don't know how far she went. For all they know, Carolyn could have gone. That Bruce does, but he's not going to say anything. For all they knew, Carolyn could go the very next round.
Is he worried about spoilers?
I mean, there was at one point that I cut where I had like brought up something and Bruce was like, no, wait. Is this spoiling the episode that I missed? Because like, I don't want to get spoiled on it. So he is surprisingly...
Yeah, right, Bruce. He knows the spoilers for season 44.
Yeah, like you knew it beat by beat. I know you're doing it for our benefit, but regardless, I mean, it could be something where if Bruce decides to turn on Kendra, he could weaponize that. He's like, no, you don't understand. This offbeat persona that we're all underestimating, she could be sitting in the final 3 alongside her 2 pals like she wants to, and she may not win it all, but she may take up a spot that you would otherwise occupy. But I do think otherwise, Carolyn certainly had built up a big personality going in, but I still think from like an audience consensus at that point, people were not necessarily thinking, oh yeah, Carolyn's got this in the bag.
Yeah, and I don't want to take anything away from Carolyn's gameplay. She was more than just a big personality, but I do think that people will be reminded of Carolyn a little bit in some ways by, Kendra's very offbeat personality.
I mean, she herself mentions it. It wasn't in my conversation, but in her bio, when she's asked about previous players she most identifies with, she says, I see bits of myself in a lot of strong female players like Amanda, Michelle, and Kim. Look at this, an Amanda Kimmel reference in the year of our Lord, Jeff 2023. Right. But the first player I really connected with is Carolyn from season 44. Like her, I am not afraid to be myself and let my freak flag fly. I love her authenticity, and I hope to bring that into the game myself. And it reminds me a lot, Rob, of when I talked with Carolyn last year, and she said that only when she watched Marianne win did she think she could do well in the game. So I sort of love this continuing cycle of like, here are these offbeat characters watching.
And Carolyn cited Nora also.
Yeah, watching these offbeat characters, watching other offbeat characters succeed and be like, okay, I think I can do this. I mean, granted, Kendra's confidence was very much bolstered in her before Marianne and Carolyn were a thing, but I love this cycle continuing.
Okay. All right. Back to Kendra.
Who sees and values that,
So when it comes to like the actual flesh and blood people that you are sitting with, that you're checking out right now at Ponderosa, talk to me about some of those first impressions. Are there people right now that you are making that eye contact with and saying like, yes, I can work with you. If we draw the same buff, perfect. And then there are people that you're thinking, big red flag, I'm writing down your name on the parchment as soon as possible.
Yeah, so it's funny because I haven't gotten huge red flags like right away, but as the days go on, I've kind of seen a little bit more. It's funny because some of the more extroverted people like myself, I'm kind of keeping more of an eye on because like, I don't know, I can just read people. I'm like, I kind of need to keep an eye on you a little bit more, but there are definitely more so people that I've like, feel like I've made eye contact with who I feel like they feel the same way. Like, I got you, girl, you know, like I got you. Like, I feel like there's a vibe between a couple of us. And I could just be thinking that because I'm just like, who doesn't want to work with me? But and I'm sure there's people who are like, that girl with the crazy curly hair and the fucking teeth earrings, like she seems weird.
Confirmed,
which
yes.
I am. And yeah, there's vibes. There's definitely vibes.
Well, let me test those vibes a bit. I'm going to put a scenario in front of you. So let's say you're in the pre-merge, you're on your camp beach, boat comes your way, and you hear you have to send one person on a journey. Now, we've seen these past few seasons, the good and bad that can come with those. Are you volunteering to go? Are you trying to push someone else to do it? What's your strategy for that?
I am a diplomat and I love fairness. I'm a Libra. So my vote is no matter what people say, I'm going to say we pull sticks or pull rocks for who goes. And then if somebody resists that, I'm going to let them go and I'm going to use it against them.
Interesting. When it comes to your handling of advantages in general, does that differ a bit? Are you no longer the diplomat when you're on your own, you know, hunting through trees for idols?
Yeah, I actually like took a nap today and like envisioned me and me being like, okay, I really want to go look for idols. I'm going to bring somebody with me and be like, no, we're just going to go on a walk. We're not looking for idols. Then me being like, we're looking for fucking idols. And then like somebody who I'm obviously like in with already. But for the most part, like my gut instinct going into this is I'm going to keep that quiet. You know, I don't want to. I'm kind of, it'd be so cool to find an idol, but like not really care that much, but just kind of be like, that would be amazing, as if it's like a far-fetched dream, but I know that I'm going to find an idol because that's just who I am. Like I'm also lucky, but I'm a little lucky, you know? So
I love that. Well, let me present one more scenario to you to finish things off.
I love these.
If you could bring a celebrity or a fictional character out as your loved one for a loved one's visit, who are you picking and why?
It's so hard. Oh, man. Okay. A celebrity or a freaking fictional character? Oh my God. This is a hard question. There's so many people running through my brain right now, but I'm going to go with fictional character. I'm going to say Hagrid from Harry Potter.
It's okay.
I mean, you could compare volume of hair, right? Like you could share hair care secrets. That
also
makes sense.
pretty tall.
There you go.
I just love Harry Potter and like, I'm such a Harry Potter nerd. And that was like one of the first like fictional characters that came to my mind. So we'll just go with that. Cause like, I'm not going to be not stoked for, even though it'd be like a little hot for him. So maybe not Hagrid. I wouldn't want him to be uncomfortable.
Oh, he'd only be there for a short portion of time.
Yeah. If we have to do like water challenges, like he can basically just carry me above his head and walk through all the water. Cause he's part giant.
Okay. Wow. People would be so confused. Like Rupert. Ah! Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Rupert as your lover would also be, I don't know.
Boy.
I would love that personally.
If Hagrid came out, Tori would be so excited.
Exactly. And she points to like Brando and Drew being like, you get this? You understand? This kid gets it.
Yeah. Okay. Boy, this I see like Doctor Strange. I see like two paths for this tribe.
Yeah. Well, Kendra herself said that she has gone to multiple destinations and she felt like survival was another portal. So I think, yeah, another portal's opening here to another multiverse where a lot of stuff could happen. Listen, we've seen other blue tribes in this new era. Luvu, for example, like absolutely dominate the pre-merge portion of the game and not have any dynamics play out until the post-merge, there's a sizable chance that happens here.
So I see One World, well, not Survivor One World. So I see
Jake
universe.
did. That's what got him into the show.
Yeah. I see a universe where Kendra doesn't fit in. People are like, what is she talking about? And it's kind of like a misfit. And then ultimately is the first person that gets voted out of the tribe. I see another universe or multiverse where the women want to work together, that they say, hey, Survivor 44, there was too many women went home in the new era. Bruce is on board. I don't want to be a part of that. And then ultimately, I could see where Brando, okay, he is not the greatest help in the challenges, kind of a, nice kid, but ultimately he's going to be the first person out. Or I then see the universe where the Jake and Katurah thing ends up manifesting, where that potentially Katurah sees through Jake is being shady about being a lawyer. He could potentially be the person that goes home. It's harder for me to imagine the scenario where Jake is like, hey, we need to get rid of Katurah because she is not believing his story or she's asking too many questions. I am having a harder time seeing the universe where that comes together.
Maybe if they go to tribal council more than once, because I do agree if you're looking at a first vote, I do think it's either Brando or Kendra based on what you were talking about, where Brando is somebody that you can easily go, Occam's razor, scrawny kid, despite the fact that this is a younger season, I actually feel like this is a little bit of an older tribe. You have someone like Jake who's in his mid-20s, but then you have like Kellie, Kendra, Katurah, all late 20s, early 30s, and then Bruce obviously at 47. So honestly, this might be a tribe where Brando might stick out like a sore thumb, or much like people talked about with Carolyn back in Tika, like Kendra, I think is at least going to be talked about as a target in those first few days, no matter whether or not she gets the most names on the parchment or not, just because she is somebody whose personality sticks out delightfully so to us, but also is like out there as well. It's not like, oh, here's this sort of kooky personality but kind of keeps to themselves. She admits she is an extrovert. She is certainly going to be, I think, in the ears of people throughout those first few days. And so
now,
go ahead.
Carolyn herself, that the person that we saw her bond with in the first couple of days of the game was Bruce. That's sort of like the older person in the tribe. Do we know what's Kendra's age?
Kendra is, I believe, I'll double check, 31.
Okay. All right.
So a good 15 plus years younger than Bruce, but
yeah, but that Bruce did seem to bond with Carolyn, at least on a personality level. So we'll see if that ultimately helps.
I think we're just trying to manifest this because Kendra is an absolute gold mine in casting, in my opinion. Like, good God, such gold already from my conversation with her. I think no matter how many days she lasts, whether they be 3 or 26, she is going to be 100% Kendra, 100% of the time.
Look, Survivor does such a great job with finding these casts. I mean, that with Big Brother, as where, in the midst of the Big Brother season, they find some great people, but then there's like, we come away with like, oh, like there was a couple of duds that they found in this Big Brother season. When we get into some of these people, who we're talking about. But even like coming away from like the Survivor cast from the last couple of years, maybe you say that there were like 4 or 5 duds across the new era, as opposed to 4 or 5 duds in a cast.
Yeah, and I do think, listen, like I don't want to like pat myself on the back too much. I could understand people getting tired of the format, and then also I think maybe reading over these bios of the contestants or taking a look at like Scotia's of interviews and being like, all right, it's the same thing. They're not really leaping off the page. I mean, Rob, I don't want to put words in your mouth, even though you put plenty of words in mine over the course of this podcast. But I would say that, like, I think your expectations probably lifted heavily upon actually getting to check out interviews with the cast and getting to, like, watch them interact with people, talk about the game. So, again, I'm really grateful to CBS for giving me, and not CVS, the home of Brando's makeshift puzzles, for giving me this opportunity to actually, like, interface with them. Because I know I gleaned a lot more about who they are as people, and regardless as to how they're going to be edited in these 90-minute episodes and what's going to occur over the course of these 26 days, I think this cast does pop more in video, in audio form. Even looking at this tribe, I know I said that the first tribe we talked about is going to be the hot mess tribe. This might be the most intriguing tribe to me, where as you mentioned, I think there are so many outcomes that they can follow. I think there are a few people that are like guaranteed safe. I don't see Bruce. I don't see Kellie really going, or even Jake going anywhere anytime in the pre-merge. And
Jake, I could squint and see. I feel like that Kellie and Bruce are the most safe in
and
this
by
group.
and by proxy, again, I think if I'm talking about a short list of people I think stand a chance of winning this game, maybe I pick out Sabaya, maybe I pick out Austin, but then I'm picking the big three of Bruce, Kellie, Jake. I think really a lot of winner equity can be found in this group, even though, as Kellie mentioned, what's a threat nowadays? Who knows? They might all be wiped out pre-merge, but I think this is going to be a very goofy group. I mean, we had 4 out of 6 people in this tribe be like, I want to be the comic relief. So clearly there's going to be a lot of malarkey happening. And as well, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting personalities mixing together that could lead to a lot of wild outcomes.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on when they go to a tribal council. If they go to the tribal council on day 2 or day 3, I think that Brando will be the first person voted out. If they go to the tribal council, they get through a couple and they get to, the 3rd or 4th tribal council, I think it's more likely to be Kendra.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think it's a matter of the first half of the pre-merge versus the second half of the post-merge, not to mention that, considering Kendra is having dreams about conversations she's having where she's looking for idols, I'm imagining she's going to be pretty hungry hitting the jungle, especially during that time. So unlike Carolyn, she might end up drawing a lot of attention to herself and being incredibly overt about it, because that's who Kendra is, delightfully so as a person. So ironically enough, as much as we talk about oh, this person has to gain footing and then once they do, they're safe, Kendra, it seems like, is almost the opposite in that way, where she might be the safest in the first few rounds, where people haven't necessarily got a huge perception of her yet. They just think oh, she's the fun, quirky person. And then as time wears on, perhaps there's more misgivings about her. Regardless, I would love to see her last this entire season, because she is going to make for absolute gold. How do you think from an alliance perspective, Rob? Again, you pointed out a lot of different possible scenarios. Do you see any tight bonds forming, though, as a constant throughout all those scenarios?
No, I don't see any pair that I say, okay, that this is a lock. These two are going to definitely get along. So, I felt like that the lawyers at first, but then when I got to thinking about how Jake is basically hiding something that could be exposed very easily by Katurah, that's giving me some pause. So, I don't see necessarily a duo. I wonder, maybe could it be Katurah and Kellie who end up being the two who end up hitting it off, where I believe Kellie, she lives in New York. Katurah, she works, she's in New York also.
She's in Brooklyn,
as well. They're both members of the LGBTQ community.
True.
So I feel like that they may be looking out for each other.
I completely agree. That was the one that I was really targeting. Another one I could possibly see is Bruce and Jake a little bit. I think they both have
Boston ties.
Yeah, exactly. The Northeast ties, as well as kind of having the same attitude of trying to be the fun-loving big bear, but also be a bit wily on the side.
How old is Jake?
Jake is, I think, 26. Let me double check really. Yep, 26. So those are the two pairs I see off the bat. And I think, understandably, that's a Brando, that's a Kendra, as to will
he's a bartender. Bruce is drunk.
He's the one supplying the drunk uncle with all those victuals. And then that leaves Brando and Kendra, I think, as, okay, you could either scoop them up or you can discard them, either or.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, awesome. I mean, Mike, this is a great cast. And the good thing about, us having the cast dropped a little bit late is that we don't have to wait that much longer.
Nope. Exactly. We are, again, less than a fortnight away, and probably this cast is young enough. Yeah, this cast is young enough that actually they might have experience in Fortnite. Maybe that's a reference that Bruce wouldn't get, as opposed to the other way around. That it's only a short portion of time. I think the provos have really been ramping up since the cast was announced. Lots of stuff happening. Apparently, new clues are being put out there. That's going to be a lot of fun. Again, 90-minute episodes. I have optimism. I know that, again, people have their understandable misgivings with the new era, and that's incredibly valid, and I agree to a certain extent. But I don't know, I can't help but be excited when I look at this cast. No matter what, the people we're going to get are going to be a lot of fun. So thank you, Rob, for putting in nearly 9
Mike, thank
hours.
you. What did I do? I just watched your interviews. I mean, thank the listeners. They did the same thing.
Yeah, thank the listeners, especially checking out nearly 9 hours. I mean, listen, that's about the amount of Survivor content that gets put out on a weekly basis here on RHAP. And I know that some people are not necessarily in on the preseason. They look at the photos and they look at the bios and that's it. But for those of you that stayed until the end of all this, thank you. Because I do sincerely appreciate it. Of course, if you want written versions, those are up at Perreault.com as well. I do have one additional piece coming out. So next Wednesday, September 20th, 1 week before the premiere, I got the opportunity to go out onto set for Survivor, not for 45, but at a future date. I got the chance to interview a lot of cast members because we are in the new era of Survivor. And Rob, to take a page out of a book that you love so much, I did a piece about the next generation of the Survivor crew. That there's this idea that Survivor really is like a family. From a cast perspective, as well as from a crew perspective, people have been brought up through the ranks across decades into positions of leadership. And so I got the chance to sit down with people across all variety of roles in the voluminous crew behind the scenes of Survivor and talk a bit about like their own journeys getting onto the show, the mentors they found, and then becoming mentors of their own and looking ahead as to who might be some of the most important figures moving forward in this new era.
So in this next generation, is Probst still Picard?
I think Probst is like the Picard in Star Trek Picard, more so than Star Trek The Next Generation, right? And that like, he's still got it. He's coming back. And much like Bruce talked about how Jeff Probst, like you just trust his face with those dimples. I mean, you can't deny Jean-Luc Picard anything. If he wants to steal a starship, damn it, he'll steal a starship.
Okay. All right. Mike Bloom, you've done so much work, our patron saint of the Survivor preseason. Thank you so much. Mike, what else are you working on these days?
Well, the first thing I'll put out again is if, for whatever reason, you have not gotten tired of my voice, I am on Cameo at a Mike Bloom type. If you'd like, I'd be happy to offer more insights about this cast based on my assessments from the preseason. You can check it out again at a Mike Bloom type.
Mike, will you review people's Survivor fantasy teams for this fall?
I will absolutely do that.
You'll be like the Matthew Berry of Survivor fantasy.
Exactly. I would be more than happy to do that. If you want to do that, please go ahead. I'll do anything. I'll wear a silly costume for it. I'm absolutely shameless in this.
Yeah, Mike doesn't care.
Yeah. In terms of other CBS reality stuff, of course, I'm doing Exit Press right now for Big Brother and the Challenge USA, one of which is reaching its halfway point. The other one is Over the Hill, and I'm not just talking about some of the vets that are on the show. And also, Rob, we're starting to look down the barrel as well of September 27th. It's not just the premiere of Survivor 45, but also of our beloved Amazing Race. Of course, we'll get together with Jess at some point, I'm sure, to do some sort of like preview for the season. Not only that, I was granted an extraordinary opportunity. On a Friday, September 22nd, I had the distinct honor of getting to moderate a panel for the Paley Center on The Amazing Race. It was part of their fall TV preview lineup. And so I got to speak with Bertram Van Munster, Elise Doganieri, co-creators and executive producers, and our dear, dear friend, Phil Kogan. We talked a bit about the history of The Amazing Race, some of their favorite places to go to, and then looked ahead to season 35, which if you've been on the beat of, there's a lot of changes happening. And so it was an immense pleasure, an honor, and a Jervis to get to do. So that's coming out on Friday, September 22nd. I believe I'll plug it more on the Amazing Race proper podcast. Of course, I'll be doing Exit Press for those shows as well when they come about. The B&B is coming back. Leon and I should be getting together, I think, next weekend to get her thoughts on the cast, probably do some casual corners check-ins. I'm sure the casuals have a lot of thoughts about Kendra in particular and the others before we get into the season proper. And then over on post-show recaps, I'm trying to keep my head on my body right now with all the stuff that I'm doing, but it's promptly in space as I'm covering Battlestar Galactica and Ahsoka. Everything to do with this and so much more I put out there on all forms of social media at a Mike Bloom type.
Okay, Mike, great job with everything. And don't know how there's enough hours in the day for you to get to it all, but somehow you do it. Mike, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. Check out everything else we have going on here on robhasawebsite.com. If you're watching us here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button to get everything we're doing here this fall. Take care. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.